Mastering the Lightning of Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276 New Teaching Aids, asking for monthly recommendation tickets. It is difficult to practice the potion class here. After all, materials are needed to make potions, and the process of casting spells is accompanied by the process of making potions. Fortunately, the professor of this course is there, Dean Snappy. This guy is well known for favor in his own people, and he is always more patient with the students of the Snake Academy during class. The professors at the other three casting practice subjects, Transfiguration and Charms, are very responsible. The explanations are very detailed and the guidance during practice is also very good. What they need is practice. Only defense against the dark arts. Because the professors at this course are often changed frequently, the teaching quality of this course is quite unstable. Although it is a casting practice subject, some professors will give young wizards a whole year of theoretical classes, basically not giving you the opportunity to practice, which leads to those young wizards who have little motivation to learn by themselves, and they've not learned a few self-defense spells at all. Then change to the professor of the next school year. If they like practice, their courses will fall behind greatly and they can't keep up with the progress of the new professor. Therefore, most of the young wizards in the academy have very poor grades in the defense against the dark arts course. Of course, this is not just the case in the Snake House, but in the entire Hogwarts. In order to solve this problem, Anduin not only served as the subject representative of this course, but also made a special teaching aid for auxiliary training. In fact, he has been studying this thing for a while, but because it is an auxiliary tool, he is not particularly anxious. He basically uses his spare time to draw the blueprint. He finally completed it completely some time ago. Anduin left Hog watching the surveillance with great interest and walked straight to the corner of the dormitory. There was a thing covered with cloth, about the same height as him, and vaguely human-shaped. Lifting the cloth covering it, the hidden thing underneath was revealed. At first glance, this is a human model with only the upper body. The lower body has a bracket fixed to the ground. The head has no face. The overall texture is unknown, whether it is wood or metal. This prop is actually a human-shaped target specially prepared for spell practice, but the one made by Anduin has different functions and effects from ordinary human-shaped targets. First of all, it was given a numerical dial that could measure the power of spells. When hit by a spell with volumetric collision, a numerical value would be displayed on the target's chest. The numerical value is based on the standard unit of the impact spell with the lowest magic output. This spell would increase the impact force as the magic input increased, and the minimum impact spell was about the same as the force of pushing a wine glass. After the attacking spell hit the humanoid target, the target would display the numerical value, and the number of impact spells displayed was equivalent to the number of impact spells. Of course, this was tested according to the destructiveness and power of the spell, not just the impact force. In addition to the spells used to sense power, Anduin also added spells such as sensing temperature, sensing integrity, and healing. It would comprehensively score the target's loss of defensive magic, the degree of damage to the target, and the degree of temperature change. This was a standard that Anduin determined after a long period of calculation. For example, a standard magic weapon can at least hit 15 points. For example, the repel spell that Mona consulted yesterday can only be considered a standard spell if it reaches at least 30 points. With this function, Anduin can roughly understand the mastery of spells by these young wizards in practical spell casting. There are many spells that must be accurately measured to know whether they are really cast completely. At the same time, its head is actually a detachable sphere. This thing has been applied with an anti-transfiguration spell with adjustable strength, which can be used to practice transfiguration and conversion spells. This sphere is made of easy-to-transform materials, and it will be very fast to use it to perform transfiguration. After you are proficient in ordinary transfiguration, you can activate the anti-transfiguration spell on it and gradually increase the difficulty of transformation. When the anti-transfiguration spell is activated to the maximum value, even Anduin has to concentrate to transform it. At the same time, this human-shaped target can also cast armor spells, barrier spells, and body spells around a body, which can be used to break armor and break invisibility tests. Anduin's target also has a fire function. Once this function is activated, a worn-out magic wand he got from the black market will pop out from the chest of the humanoid target, and then it will fire back and forth to cast the repulse curse and disarmament curse. This function is mainly used by senior wizards to practice the Armor Curse. Basically, this humanoid target has a tough body and good self-healing ability. It can absorb magic energy when it is hit and display the opponent's attack power. Its head can be used to practice transfiguration and can also fire in turn. It is an auxiliary prop specially used for practicing spells. Anduin has only made one so far. He plans to try it out in a few nights during practice. If the effect is good, he will make a few more. It is just right to use these little wizards to test the quality control of this prop, so that it can be improved in the future and sold as a product to the aurors of the Ministry of Magic. Maybe I can also use some cheap materials to make some other tactical equipment as prizes to reward these little wizards. Doing user experience analysis in advance is also conducive to product innovation. Anduin nodded and thought of another good idea. After all, these little wizards are such good experimental materials. Wouldn't it be a waste if they were not used? While Anduin was gradually daydreaming, these little snakes of Slytherin had begun to get used to following the rules set by Anduin. Now, after experiencing the shock of yesterday, the little wizards are now nervous no matter what they do. They are careful when eating, dare not talk, and are very cautious when walking. If there are more than 2 people around them, they must change their formation immediately. The same changes also apply to housekeeping and etiquette. They have to polish their leather shoes to shine every day, and use spells to make their clothes smooth without a wrinkle, for fear of being discovered and caught by the chief. At the same time, they greet everyone they see, including Filch, whom they used to hate very much. This weird change even makes the administrator who looks at people with fierce eyes every day a little embarrassed. The most confused person is actually Snape himself. He was busy with those things outside the school and could only return to school during class time. As soon as he returned to the academy, he felt as if he had walked into the wrong place. As soon as he walked into the corridor, he saw a neat and orderly line of people, who took turns to greet him with serious faces. Although he was the head of Slytherin, these students in the Snake House were still very afraid of him. Chapter 277. The 3 Qualities of a Wizard, asking for monthly recommendation tickets. Whenever these little wizards saw him, they either timidly greeted him and ran away, or immediately turned around and hid. Sometimes he would go up to them and educate them with a very creepy look. But how come these guys changed in just 2 or 3 days? Suddenly, they were all unruly, and he couldn't even find out what was wrong. At night, when he finally had time to inspect the college, he entered the dungeon stone hall and found that the entire public lounge had changed. The original leather sofa and solid wood coffee table were gone, and the girl who played mahjong every day and the chess and card table in the back were gone. Even the tapestries on the walls of the dungeon that depicted famous Slytherins on adventures were taken away, and now there were rows of banners with green backgrounds and silver characters. On them were written inspirational quotes such as "Learn to death as long as you don't die." And details determine success or failure, attitude determines everything. Snape felt a little creepy when he saw these banners, and when he lowered his head to look for the little wizards in the college. What caught his eyes was a row of people sitting neatly at a long table. They were either doing their homework quietly or holding notebooks to ask questions to seniors. Snape could only hear the rustling of pages, the rubbing of feather pens against parchment, and the low and quiet voices of questions and answers. Suddenly entering such a quiet place with such a strong learning atmosphere made him feel stressed. Snape didn't even dare to speak, as if disturbing these children would be a crime. At this time, Snape glanced up and down and found that he seemed to be redundant in the entire common room. This made him helpless and curled his lips, and then left silently from the entrance. The people in the dungeon didn't even notice that the dean had been here. Since the severe punishment of these little wizards that night, they have indeed become more disciplined. No matter what they think in their hearts, their behavior has indeed become standardized. This is the beginning of developing good habits. During these 2 days, even though Hog squatted in front of the magic monitor all day, he could only catch 2 or 3 little wizards who violated the rules every day, so Anduin did not punish them during the evening self-study. The study groups of these 2 days were also carried out in an orderly manner under the organization of the department representative. After 9 o'clock in the evening, the department representative kept the little wizards with poor scores in the 1st to 5th grade test and divided them into 3 groups. The department representative himself was responsible for tutoring the 5th grade group, and the 2 6th grade assistants respectively guided the other 2 groups composed of 1st and 2nd grades and 3rd and 4th grades. On the 3rd day, the study group of the Defense Against the Dark Arts course guided by Anduin himself officially began. However, today was different from the past. In addition to those little wizards with poor academic performance, many people voluntarily stayed to observe, and the people who stayed accounted for more than 70% of the whole school. The main reason was that there were too many poor grades in this course, and almost half of the people passed or failed this course. In addition, many people knew that there would be practical learning tonight, and they all wanted to learn from the chief. After all, this was a world-famous combat hero. Seeing so many people staying at the scene, Anduin rubbed his chin and thought for a moment, and decided to take advantage of today's tutoring time to give an open class, which would also be a good opportunity to test these people's practical ability. Luis, Leo, please help to collect the chairs and stack them in the corner. There are many people staying today, so I will give them a lesson at the same time. Anduin looked at the other two former assistants. Since you are so interested in defense against the dark arts, then listen to it. Anduin faced the crowd and directed loudly, everyone, stand back, those who are short stand forward, and stand in a staggered manner. Anduin worked for a while, and finally the space in the stone hall was freed up. He stood in the center of the stone hall, and the others formed a U-shape around him. Looking at the curious eyes of the people around him, Anduin drew out his wand and began his professional tutoring. Defense against the dark arts is a subject that teaches you how to deal with evil black magic spells and evil creatures. Many of you should have learned some knowledge about evil creatures from textbooks. Today, we will focus on practice, so I will skip this part. As Anduin explained, everyone around him nodded in approval. After all, those theoretical knowledge can actually be solved by rote memorization. Okay, then I'll get straight to the point. Anduin waved his wand, and a prop dummy appeared out of thin air in the open space in the distance. It was his new teaching aid. The spells included in defense against the dark arts are mainly self-defense spells and anti-spells. These spells are actually not fundamentally different from ordinary spells. All wizards who want to cast spells are actually determined by three basic qualities. Anduin said in a flat tone. The onlookers looked at each other in confusion at this time. Three basic qualities. It was the first time they heard of this concept. The first quality is the magic power that determines how many spells we can use. As soon as Anduin finished speaking, waves of strong magic power rippled all over his body. This wave pressed down on everyone recklessly, bringing a heart-pounding feeling of suffocation. But this feeling did not last for a moment, and Anduin restrained this magic power fluctuation in time. However, it only took a few seconds to make everyone around him gasp. This desperate feeling of oppression rushed towards them like a tsunami. Is this the true strength of their chief? This is also that first time they've seen Anduin show his strength with their own eyes. The second basic quality, Anduin didn't care about the eyes of the people around him. He just maintained a humble tone. Magic sensitivity, most people understand it superficially as magic perception, but there are some essential differences. Magic perception is a form of magic sensitivity, but it affects more than just magic perception. It can directly affect our perception, affinity, and control of magic. Anduin put away his wand and waved his hand gently. A dozen copper nets slowly floated out from the inner pocket of his robe. Then these nets were arranged in a string, passing through his arms and wrists, and shuttled between his fingers up and down, like a spirit with life. This scene made everyone around him intoxicated. The ordinary copper net seemed to come alive in Anduin's hands. You know, this is done without a wand. Seeing this, even many senior wizards who were about to graduate feel ashamed. Chapter 278. Gathering Will, asking for monthly recommendation tickets. Everyone's magic sensitivity is different, and it's hard to judge by yourself. If you want to improve, you need to practice spells frequently. It's best to use up all your magic, and then savor the process of magic recovery. This is a very painful process. Anduin said, while leisurely fiddling with the copper coins on his fingertips, as if they were an extension of his body. The young wizards around listened to Anduin's explanation. Most of the younger wizards had a blank expression, obviously not understanding, while the senior wizards had a thoughtful expression, gradually digesting the content. And the third quality, Anduin raised his hand and pointed at his head, it is inside you, it is your mind. Flexible changes in thoughts and rich imagination determine how specific the objects you transform with transfiguration are. Emotional fluctuations, firm willpower, these thoughts directly determine the strength of your spellcasting. The greater the emotional fluctuations, the greater the increase in magic power. And positive emotions have a boost to protective magic. For example, to cast the Patronus spell, you need to concentrate, think about the happiest things in your heart, and then shout out the spell Expecto Patronus. Anduin closed his eyes while explaining, but when he shouted "Expecto Patronus," the wand shook lightly, and a silver-white gas gushed out from the tip of the wand, and then gathered in the air into a raven, flying around in the air. Seeing this scene, the senior wizards next to them all showed envious expressions. None of them had ever heard of anyone who could master this spell, let alone the junior wizards who were stunned. Negative emotions have an impact on black magic. Of course, some people say that black magic is tempting people to fall. In my opinion, the two actually affect each other. Strong hatred, anger, resentment and other emotions can amplify black magic, but black magic will also subtly amplify the negative emotions in our hearts. If you have a strong willpower and can hold on, your mind will be filled with endless negative energy, just like being controlled by black magic in turn. You'd better not try it, otherwise you'll fall into it accidentally. Anduin warned the people around him with a serious face. The people around him showed a slightly frightened expression after hearing what he said, but some of the little wizards couldn't help asking their own questions. "Chief, have you tried black magic?" "Me?" Anduin's mouth curled up slightly, and he glanced at the little wizard without comment. "You can guess, but if I find you trying black magic recklessly, don't blame me for being rude." The little wizard who raised the question was frightened by Anduin's eyes and shrank his shoulders, and the little wizards next to him also forced themselves to suppress their curiosity. In fact, Anduin had tried the dark magic. When he finally caught the werewolf alive in the Forbidden Forest, he had tried to cast the Cruciatus Curse in order to study the Longbottom's illness. But as soon as he cast it, he immediately felt something strange in his mind. He had a strong urge to kill and torture people in his mind, and it brought him a numb and pleasant feeling that made him unwilling to stop. Fortunately, Anduin reacted quickly at the time. He realized that there was something wrong with this strange change in his emotions, so he stopped immediately, and then relied on his strong willpower to suppress the negative emotions that kept emerging from his mind. Since then, he has maintained considerable restraint on the dark magic, especially the powerful dark magic. He could not accept that his consciousness was out of control. Let's not talk about these emotional influences. Anduin shook his head. What I want you to learn and try today is to drive your magic through willpower. This is more stable than mobilizing the emotion amplification spell and is not easy to get out of control. Willpower? The young wizards around couldn't help but think about it as they listened to the explanation. It was obvious that they didn't have much knowledge about this aspect. The more determined the will, the more powerful the spell you cast. The self-defense spell you learned in the defense against the dark arts class is basically difficult to reach the standard without any bonus. Next, I will demonstrate it for you. Anduin held the magic wand and slowly walked to the opposite side of the human-shaped target. Next, I will not increase the output of magic power, without any emotional fluctuations, and cast a repulse spell with my brain empty. You can see the effect. Then Anduin deliberately suppressed his instinct, let himself not think about anything, distract his attention, and pointed at the human-shaped target. Repel quickly. After he finished reciting the spell, a translucent light bullet hit the target swayingly, making a dull sound, and then saw the chest of the human-shaped target light up, showing a row of numbers. 26. The young wizards on both sides looked at the human-shaped target in front of them, and they were a little curious. Why can this target also display numbers? This target is an alchemical item. The number displayed represents the power of the spell. A standard knitback spell must have a value of at least 30. The spell I just cast did not meet the standard. Raise your hands if you have encountered similar situations when casting spells. Anduin looked up and looked around and asked. After thinking for a moment, the people around him raised their hands. There was at least a large group of people who had raised their hands. However, more people's eyes were still on the human-shaped target. Obviously, they thought they had found an interesting thing. With this prop, could they also measure the power of their own spells? Don't look at it. You will all have a chance to practice in a while. Let me finish the demonstration now. That was a wrong demonstration just now. Next, you will see the role of willpower in casting spells. After that, Anduin raised his wand again and pointed at the target from a distance. First, you must concentrate your attention and not be disturbed by external things. Then, you must gather your will. Specifically, imagine yourself as a sharp sword, or the sharpest thing in your impression. Then, keep suppressing yourself, just like a bowstring that is constantly being pulled to its full length. Then, compress all your attention and mental power into this sharp sword. When you recite the spell, it is like releasing the bowstring and releasing it completely. Repel quickly. The cold spell echoed in the stone hall. Both the tone and the sound seemed to be exactly the same as the last time the spell was cast. But when the magic wand was shaken out, a milky white magic light bullet that was as condensed as a solid object shot out like an arrow from a string, and even left a small tail in the air. Chapter 279 Power Value, asking for monthly ticket recommendation. In the blink of an eye, the light bullet hit the humanoid target standing not far away, and then a loud noise came from the stone hall, like a big bell being broken by a pendulum. The sound waves and vibrations even formed an aftermath, and everyone felt a short gust of wind blowing on their faces, and then the rock ground under their feet shook slightly. The humanoid target not far away showed the powerful properties of the alchemical tool at this time. After being hit with such a strong force, it was not knocked away, and the bracket of the lower body was like taking root in the place. However, the impact force was too great, causing the humanoid target to bend backwards fiercely, almost forming a 180 parallel with the ground, but after the force was released, the humanoid target rebounded fiercely, and bounced back and forth more than a dozen times before gradually standing firm. At this time, the onlookers saw the value displayed on the chest of the humanoid target. 238. Yes, and everyone took a deep breath. Such a big commotion, coupled with the shocking numbers that formed a sharp contrast before, seemed to make them recognize the chief in front of them again. Everyone stared at Anduin in front of them with wide eyes and horror. At this time, Anduin was staring at the human-shaped target expressionlessly, as if thinking about something. Well, the preliminary test of the humanoid target performed well. At least the quality is acceptable. It can withstand 70% of my impact spells. So as long as it is not a spell with exaggerated destructive power like the fire or thunder, it should be able to deal with most conventional self-defense spells and black magic. Then Anduin came back to his senses, glanced at the stunned people, and frowned slightly. Why are you all standing there? Remember what I just said. I don't want to repeat it too much. When casting spells, concentrate as much as possible. Imagine yourself as steel that is not afraid of pain. Wizards above the 3rd grade, come and line up according to your grade. Let me see how much you have absorbed. If you don't perform well, you'll have to practice more in the future. Anduin's eyes were stern, and he glanced at the people around him. At this time, the young wizards around him who were still in shock reacted and hurriedly ran to Anduin to line up. Originally, Anduin was going to let only the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades practice. After all, it was a tutorial, so he would definitely take care of the problem students first. However, the senior students also lined up at this time. Obviously, they were also very interested in this humanoid target that could display that power of the spell, and they all wanted to take this opportunity to test their own strength. Soon, a line of people with several turns formed. The first 3rd-year wizard who stood up was very excited. After pulling out his wand, he shouted quickly repel with great momentum. When the spell he fired hit the target, it only showed a value of 15 points, which was not even as strong as the spell that Anduin deliberately lowered the power to cast. Seeing his performance, the people around him couldn't help laughing, which made him extremely embarrassed for a while. Calm down, the louder you chant the spell, the stronger it will be. Focus and do it again. Anduin solemnly warned. Yes, Chief. The little wizard was frightened and trembled all over, then carefully recalled the key points of Anduin's instructions, closed his eyes and took a deep breath, tried to concentrate his mind, and then blushed, and shot a spell with all his strength. 21. The human-shaped target showed the value again. Although the strength was still not high, it was much better than before. Not bad, you have made progress. You should practice this method alone after class. Now step back and let's go. Anduin nodded. The little wizard nodded reluctantly and made way. The performance of the little wizard behind him was not as good as his. The first repulse spell only hit 13 points. After Anduin let him try 3 times, he barely reached 20 points. This result made the other 3rd-year wizards behind him feel cold. Is it so difficult? They laughed at the first person who tried it before. When Anduin quantified the power of the spell, these little wizards faced their own spell level for the first time. In the past, many of them may have thought that their spell casting level was okay. But after the real test today, they found that they were just average. But in Anduin's eyes, this was not surprising. These little wizards rarely had the opportunity to practice casting spells. Although the shock spell was learned in the 3rd grade, it was not until the 4th grade that the exam was conducted. As time went by, the 3rd grade little wizards soon finished their turns, and the general scores were between 20 to 25 points. When it was the turn of the last 3rd grade student, his performance suddenly amazed the audience. as everyone heard a spell being cast on the human-shaped target, a dull sound completely different from that of the previous little wizards, and a value of 53 points was displayed on the target. Not only the little wizards in the 3rd grade, but also the people around burst into exclamations. At this time, it was Evie who stood in front of the human-shaped target, who had received 2 years of training from Anduin. Until this moment, Evie also stared at the target in a daze. He now realized how much improvement Anduin's training had brought him. Did you slow down? I remember that your spell trajectory was faster last year than just now, or did you learn bad things from Charles and the others, and slack off during the summer vacation? Anduin ignored the amazed looks of others, and instead looked at Ibrahimovic with a bad face. This kid is usually very honest, could he also be led astray? Ibrahimovic, who was a little amazed at his own strength just now, suddenly tensed up when he heard Anduin's question, and hurriedly shouted, No, I didn't slack off with Bill and the others, I just didn't concentrate enough just now, or I'll try again, I will definitely meet the standard next time. Anduin glanced at him speechlessly. You seem to have let it slip just now, forget it, don't waste time here, hurry up and return to training. If the next practice is still at this level, don't blame me for arranging special training for you. When Ibrahimovic heard the word special training, his face froze, as if he recalled something terrible, and nodded quickly, then quickly dodged to the side. Everyone around heard the conversation between Anduin and Ibrahimovic. When they saw Ibrahimovic's amazing performance, they were just amazed. But from what Anduin said, Ibrahimovic's performance was still not good enough. At this time, they couldn't help but look back and forth between Anduin and Ibrahimovic. They knew that Ibrahimovic had a good relationship with the chief. Could it be that his strength was related to Anduin? Looking at this scene, everyone not only looked at Ibrahimovic differently, but Anduin was even more unfathomable in their eyes. Every time everyone thought they knew him well enough, more mysteries would emerge from Anduin, making it impossible for people to see through this chief forever. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 280. Please give us a chance, ask for monthly ticket recommendation ticket. Ignoring the opinions of others, Anduin continued to arrange the practice drills. When it was the turn of the 4th grade wizards, the values of their spells were significantly higher than those of the 3rd grade students. For example, Mona's normal spell casting was already around 20 points. After Anduin's guidance, she could reach 27 or 28 points after casting again. As long as she practiced more, she might be able to reach the normal standard. The level of the entire 4th grade was only between 25 and 32, and most of the young wizards could not reach the standard value. But such performance still made them feel ashamed, because they found that they were not as good as the 3rd grade Evie, and the gap was quite large. In fact, at their current level, it would be no problem to pass the final exam. Even Mona could be rated E good. Because the professor did not have a standard instrument like Anduin, he could only make a rough estimate based on experience. It was normal to have a few points of error, but Anduin would not report such a fluke mentality. He wanted to achieve solid results. Since the 5th grade, the basic spell casting has exceeded 30 points, and the average level is close to 40 points, and some individuals can even exceed it. But since there was an Evie who scored 53 points in front of them as a comparison, it seemed that their level was not good enough. And Anduin actually praised them for this, which made them feel even more ashamed. No, they couldn't let people look down on them. They had to practice spells hard in the future. It was unacceptable that they couldn't even compare with the young wizards in the lower grades. These 5th-year wizards secretly made up their minds. The best performer among the 5th-year students was Vivian. She scored 52 points in her first spell practice, which amazed everyone around her. In the eyes of everyone in the Snake Academy, Vivian was a cheerful gossiping girl. She usually went to practice Quidditch or played mahjong in the common room. Who would have thought that she was so strong? But Anduin looked at her with a speechless expression. Is this the result of your training for so long? You can't even compare with Evie. Vivian saw Anduin's eyes and understood his dissatisfaction, but she just stuck out her tongue mischievously, obviously not caring about it. When it was the turn of the 6th and 7th grade wizards to practice, they all adjusted their states and wanted to perform well. The level of these senior wizards was really good. At their age, they could actually be considered adult wizards. In terms of physical fitness, they were far superior to the lower grade wizards. The repulse spells they cast could reach at least 50 points, and some 7th grade wizards could even hit 80 points. Among them, Velen performed the best. The human-shaped target he hit with the repulse spell leaned back greatly, and the final value displayed exceeded 100 points, reaching as many as 116 points, which made everyone dumbfounded. However, when Velen saw the value he had hit, his first reaction was to scratch his head in embarrassment, and then explain to Anduin that he had not been lazy before, but had been busy recently, and his level had declined due to fatigue. At this time, the onlookers realized that Evie, Vivian, and Velen, who had performed amazingly before, all had a good relationship with Anduin. Could it be that they were so strong because of Anduin? Thinking of this, everyone seemed to have discovered the bright spot, and their eyes looking at Anduin became even more heated. Chief. Joey, who was the most impulsive, couldn't help it at this time, and moved closer to Anduin nervously. What's wrong? Everyone has practiced today. If you want to practice again, you have to wait until the next study group. Anduin thought Joey still wanted to practice, so he refused directly. No, I want to ask, Evie and Velen are so strong, did you teach them some secret? Joey snapped his fingers awkwardly. In his eyes, this might be Anduin's secret, and he was really embarrassed to ask it like this. Secret? The secret is training, scientific training, high-intensity training. What? Do you want to try it? It was the first time that Anduin saw someone interested in training, like those guys in his training class, who just wanted to slack off all day. Is it okay? Joey obviously didn't understand what Anduin meant. He only thought about whether he could become so strong by participating in Anduin's so-called training. Joey actually helped everyone around him to ask the questions in their hearts, so the little wizards around him also looked at Anduin with wide eyes. Oh? It seems that everyone is very interested in this. Anduin also noticed the eyes of the people around him at this time. After a little thought, he also understood the key. Seeing this, Anduin rubbed his chin slightly. He didn't care about the training. After all, training one person is training, and training 10 people is training. However, the reason why Anduin asked Charles and others to train was mainly to collect training data, and then summarize a set of the most effective methods to improve the quality of wizards, and finally for his own use. Moreover, after so many years, he has actually collected almost all the relevant data, so he did not expect to expand the scale of training. The main reason is that he is also lazy and wants to spend more time on research. However, seeing that everyone is so interested, he can use this training to make a fuss. Since everyone has this idea, I can't be too selfish. Anduin said seriously with a stern face. Seeing that there is a play, the people around him nodded to him and seemed quite anxious. But, Anduin hesitated for a moment, making everyone scratch their heads anxiously. This training is unique to me, a special skill that can enhance the quality of wizards, so I can't just spread it to you casually. Anduin shook his head. Can we? If you can, please give us a chance anyway, we also want to become stronger. Joey, as a well-known fighter, has a strong desire to become stronger. Yes, we also want to become stronger, don't worry, I will work hard. How can we have such an opportunity? As long as you ask, I will do my best. In addition to Joey, many wizards around him also interrupted and shouted. Okay, since you are so willing, it would be bad not to give you a chance, but this is all conditional. Anduin nodded. Velen, Vivian and Evie who were watching on the side were all confused. Was Anduin trying to trick others into joining their training? They would never do such a deceptive thing. You know, they were trying to find ways to slack off every day. After all, long-term and high-intensity training was too tiring. Chapter 281 Monthly Exam. What are the conditions? Tell me. A group of young wizards, including Joey, asked excitedly. I don't teach people who don't know how to be self-disciplined. Only if you rank in the top 3 in the monthly assessment can you choose to receive my systematic training. If you violate discipline and school rules and are deducted from the college, in addition to deducting grade scores, you will also leave a personal score record with me, which will add points to the college. If you abide by discipline and have excellent monthly exam scores, you can improve your personal score. Seeing that everyone was very interested, Anduin included participation in the training in the monthly reward. After listening to Anduin's words, many people around him were silent. In other words, if you want to accept the chief's unique guidance, you must ensure that you have no illegal records, excellent grades, and actively add points to the college. Joey's heart sank. He had violated discipline once this month, and his grades were not good, but the desire to become stronger in his heart still drove him. "I understand, Chief, I will definitely work hard." Jody gritted his teeth and promised firmly. "Well, work hard." Anduin nodded, then put away the human-shaped target and floated away. The people who stayed in place also had a fire burning in their hearts, but in order to obtain the qualification, in addition to not breaking the rules, they also had to have outstanding performance. The simplest and most direct way was to improve their grades. So many people turned their attention to the other few subject representatives. Since their foundation was not solid, they could only spend more time to make up for it. Vivian. Jody took the lead in stopping Vivian, who was about to go back to the dormitory to rest. "My magic history is too bad. Can you help me? Please?" "Now?" Vivian looked at him speechlessly. The tutoring was obviously over. "Please, it's good to buy some time." Jody showed a humble look and looked at Vivian pitifully. In the end, Vivian, who couldn't stand Jody's grinding, stayed in the common room for more than an hour to tutor him. Jody was not the only one who had the same idea. Others in the stone hall were also taking action. They either begged other subject representatives to help with tutoring or took out their textbooks and ran to the common room to study. Unexpectedly, this simple practical tutorial tonight suddenly aroused everyone's enthusiasm for learning. Many people actually stayed up all night to study. However, their sudden enthusiasm came at a price. Several people were caught by professional hog because they stayed up too late and were late for class. Despite this, since that night, there have been more and more young wizards who acted like this. Although the self-study time is 2 hours, many people spontaneously stayed after the evening self-study to follow the study group for tutoring. After the tutoring, many young wizards still stayed in the public lounge and pulled the department representatives to stay for tutoring. They were very active. This evening got several department representatives. In the end, after these department representatives jointly boycotted, they got rid of them, but these people still stayed up all night to study. And in order to give everyone more opportunities to practice spellcasting, Anduin specially vacated a dungeon and put a human-shaped target in it. Let those who want to practice by themselves, but because he was worried that someone would occupy it for a long time, he stipulated that each person could only cast a spell 10 times at most at a time to avoid malicious competition. He plans to make a few more in the future. Now let them use this one first, just in time to test the trouble-free operation time of the human-shaped target. In addition to the academy, the little wizards outside the academy have also shown almost crazy enthusiasm in class. No matter which grade or class, as long as the professor asks questions, the little wizards of Slytherin are always the first to raise their hands. This is what Ravenclaw likes to do. This change not only surprised the professor, but also the students from the other academies who took the same class. Moreover, this behavior has intensified. In order to get extra points and avoid making mistakes, these little wizards have even become inward-looking, and they compete with each other every day. They compete to see who can act the most points to the academy, who can study the latest, and who can polish their shoes the brightest. In the end, they even became a little crazy. In order not to be deducted points, they even kept silent while eating. After eating, they quickly found a place to read books, or lined up to practice casting spells. Soon a month was about to pass. In the previous weekly meeting, Anduin punished the students who violated the rules with the same strict attitude, and the number of push-ups for each person was increased to 50. This kind of warning every once in a while can enable most people to maintain good habits. But even so, not everyone can maintain such vigor and enterprising spirit. Some individuals, out of laziness and inertia over the years, will still inadvertently violate discipline. Some of the little wizards still cannot fully integrate into the group. They see that they have no hope of competing, and their sense of honor is not strong, so they start to mess around. Faced with this situation, their grade group leader has no way to deal with it. And because these little wizards make 1 or 2 small mistakes every week, they have to do 50 to 100 push-ups at the weekly meeting, and their physical fitness has actually been trained. Now this level of corporal punishment can no longer put pressure on them. Gradually, they began to adapt to this set of rules, but they were not completely against the discipline. They would abide by the rules, but occasionally they would be caught due to negligence, and they would not feel guilty or vigilant. Now they even give people the feeling of being a seasoned man. For these stubborn guys, Anduin decided to find an opportunity to deal with them, but the most important thing now is the first monthly exam. This monthly exam is scheduled on the Saturday of the last week of this month. Since time was very tight, Anduin divided the young wizards into written exams and practical spellcasting for the exam. All the mornings were written exams. Each course had a written exam part, but the proportion of written exams would decrease after the senior grades. In this case, Anduin distinguished different exam times according to the number of subjects and the grade. There were 7 courses in the first and second grades, and the exam time for each course was 40 minutes. They were still mainly based on written exams, so the exam time was arranged for a long time. There were 9 courses in the 3rd to 5th grades, and the exam time for each course was half an hour. The 6th and 7th grades only took the subjects that passed the OWL certificate, but their written exams were also only arranged for 30 minutes. The reason for this is that, on the one hand, in the senior grades, the proportion of written tests is already quite low, except for theoretical knowledge subjects. On the other hand, Anduin wanted them to complete the written test in advance, and then use the rest of the morning to complete the practical test. Chapter 282 Cheating. In this way, the 6th and 7th graders can complete all the exams in advance in the morning. After all, there are fewer people and their grades are generally good. After they finish the exams in advance, they can help serve as examiners for the practical exams for the middle and lower grades in the afternoon. Because the subjects are very diverse, they cannot all be squeezed into the common room for the exams, so Anduin borrowed some empty classrooms from several professors. In the afternoon, these senior wizards will take them to the corresponding examination sites to complete the practical tests, just like the physical examination in the previous life. After taking one subject, they will go to the next classroom to take the next subject. Anduin even borrowed the classroom and exam materials for the potion class from Snape. Snape promised Anduin that he would fully cooperate with him, so he agreed very happily. After all, he has seen the changes in the college now. He can no longer understand the current Slytherin college. Now he doesn't even dare to enter the common room. As long as he appears in the dungeon stone hall, everyone will stand at attention and greet him when they see him, and the look in their eyes makes people panic. Sometimes he wondered if Anduin had gone too far, but since he had promised not to interfere, he would not interfere at all. This also caused Snape's eyes to look at Anduin more and more strangely recently, which made Anduin feel very uncomfortable. The end of the first month of this school year finally arrived, and the entire Slytherin college was preparing according to Anduin's arrangements. All the young wizards in the college were nervously preparing for the exam at this time. They knew that the grade and individual with the highest comprehensive score would receive the reward of the chief. The monthly exam results accounted for a large proportion of the comprehensive score, so both the grade group leader and the individual were ready to go all out. On the Saturday of the last week, all the young wizards got up at 7 o'clock and dressed neatly, then had breakfast in the hall together, and gathered in the common room before 7:30. Although the Snape College often acted collectively, it was so early that it even alarmed many wizards and professors. In the stone hall of the Slytherin dungeon, all the young wizards were divided into 3 groups with solemn expressions and sat in different areas. Then, under Anduin's announcement, the monthly exam officially began. This monthly exam was very different from the baseline exam at the beginning of the school year, and its significance was also different. So at the beginning, the atmosphere in the dungeon was rendered quite solemn. In the entire stone hall, there was no noise except the sound of the pen tip scratching the parchment. Among them, the senior students were relatively less stressed. After all, they all had good grades and would not join the competition this time. Anduin also gave them corresponding benefits and permissions. These exams were actually more to help them review and prepare for the final exam. Soon, after nearly an hour, some senior students finished the exam. These were those who only passed 2 courses in the new certificate. After they handed in their papers, Anduin took those who had finished the exam first out of the common room and came to the empty classroom prepared in advance to take the spellcasting exam. Other senior students who had finished their exams one after another would also come over one after another after handing in their papers. In this way, the senior students could finish all the exams in one morning by staggering their time. But after they left, what about the little wizards in the common room? Aren't they afraid that someone will cheat? This depends on their self-control, and this is also a small test left by Anduin. The entire common room is under Hog's full surveillance at this time. If someone really dares to make a small move, Anduin will be very happy. He is worried that he will not have the opportunity to rectify the atmosphere. The monthly exam in the morning is progressing steadily at this pace, and the senior exams are about to be completed on time according to Anduin's prediction. Just as he was about to evaluate the last few 6th grade wizards and was about to finish, he suddenly froze, as if he was disturbed by something. Velen, you can help me complete the transfiguration test for the last 3 people. Just follow that previous standards. I have something to do and I have to go out for a while. After the test, you can go directly to the common room. Anduin squinted his eyes and tilted his head to Velen and said, "Ah? Oh, okay." Velen didn't know what was wrong with Anduin, but he still agreed out of habit. After Anduin walked out of the classroom, he immediately cast a spell of illusion on himself, and then quietly returned to the common room of the Serpent Academy. The reason why he had this reaction was because he received a message from Hog. After he left, someone actually tried to cheat. And according to the message from Hog, he cheated in more than one subject, which was simply looking for death. After returning to the common room, Anduin quickly followed Hog's instructions and found the little wizard who was cheating. It was Godric, a third-year student. His academic performance was average, and he had violated discipline many times before. He was a relatively cunning little wizard. And his cheating method was quite plain and unpretentious. He actually brought cheat sheets directly, but the hiding was quite secretive. It was a piece of ordinary-looking parchment. When he encountered something he didn't know in the exam, he secretly input magic power into the parchment, and then the corresponding answer would appear on the parchment, which seemed to be some kind of magic prop. If he hadn't copied too frequently, Hog might not have caught him. Anduin did not expose him on the spot, but just watched him cheat coldly, and then walked out calmly. Later, during the afternoon exams, Anduin behaved calmly, as if he had not noticed anything at all, and just carried out the spellcasting exams for the middle and lower grades according to the original plan until all the exams for the day were over. And the little wizard Hades seemed to think that his cheating was flawless, and he still chatted and joked with his classmates quite calmly. The next day, the monthly meeting of the academy was scheduled in the afternoon, and the morning time was left for the representatives of each department to mark the test papers. It was not until noon that Anduin learned the final test results. In the afternoon, all the little wizards sat upright in the stone hall, waiting for the monthly meeting to be held. When the time came, Anduin appeared on the podium in the common room on time. He looked at everyone calmly and said with a slight smile, "The September monthly meeting officially begins now. The meeting agenda includes the following items. 1. Announcement of test scores and grade rankings. 2. Announcement of the grade with the highest comprehensive score this month, as well as the top 3 comprehensive scores, and rewards will be paid out. 3. Notification of those who violated discipline this week and punishment." Hearing Anduin finally say what they were most looking forward to, the little wizards widened their eyes and stared at the podium intently. Chapter 283 Monthly Meeting. Anduin looked at the expectant eyes of the crowd and smiled slightly. He continued, "First, let's announce the results. In this monthly exam, everyone in the academy has passed the exam. This is a good start. We're arranged by grade. The highest percentage of each good subjects is in the 3rd grade, reaching 45%, followed by the 4th grade, reaching 42%, and then the 2nd grade, with 40%. It is improved, but our goal is to reach 100%, so everyone still needs to work hard." After hearing Anduin announce that their school had the highest score, the 3rd-year students immediately became excited. They were all happy and wanted to cheer and applaud immediately, but when they thought of the discipline, they immediately restrained themselves and just looked at the chief with great expectation. If you want to applaud, applaud. Everyone, give applause to the top 3 to show encouragement. Anduin saw their thoughts and said calmly. With Anduin's permission, warm applause suddenly rang out in the stone hall, and the 3rd-year wizards were the most enthusiastic. "Okay, next I will announce the grade and individual with the highest comprehensive score in the whole academy." Anduin stretched out his hand to quiet everyone down before continuing. Hearing this, the crowd in the audience seemed even more excited. The grade with the highest comprehensive score this time is the 3rd grade. You have the highest score in the academy. At the same time, you have won 22 points for slying this month, which is the 2nd highest in the academy, second only to the 24 points of the 4th grade. The discipline deduction points are 9 points, which is the 2nd lowest among the 1st to 5th grades, second only to the 5th grade. Anduin once again focused his attention on the 3rd grade crowd. Hearing Anduin call their names again, the 3rd graders were so excited that they almost jumped up, and after Anduin nodded again, they applauded excitedly, and the little wizards blushed. Okay, after announcing the grade rankings, let's take a look at the individual rankings. Please stand up if you have been called by me. Anduin waited for everyone's excitement to pass, and then said calmly. First of all, the first place is Ibrahimovic from the 3rd grade. He did not have a single disciplinary deduction this month, and won 7 points for the college. At the same time, his monthly exam scores were 6 O's and 3 A's, which are also the highest in the college. The second place is Jenny from the 5th grade. She also did not have a single disciplinary deduction this month, and won 7 points for the college. At the same time, her monthly exam scores were 5 O's and 4 A's. The third place is Mona from the 5th grade. She did not have a single disciplinary deduction this month, and won 5 points for the college. Her monthly exam scores were the same as Jenny's, 5 O's and 4 A's. The 3 people who were called stood up excitedly at this time, and then welcomed the applause of the students in the whole college. Anduin glanced at Joey, who was a little disappointed next to Mona, and said, "Joey, to be honest, your grades have improved the most in the whole college, and your comprehensive score has reached the 4th in the whole college. Keep working hard." Joey, who was originally in a low mood, heard the chief actually say something to encourage him, and immediately nodded excitedly. "Okay, you all know that I will give rewards to the highest score in grades and the top 3 individuals. Now I will announce the rewards." Anduin waved his hand, and a small table appeared out of thin air next to him. 3 pairs of leather boots were quietly placed on it. There was also a familiar human-shaped target next to the table. Anduin first pointed to the human-shaped target. "This is a new one I made. The grade with the highest ranking will get the right to practice with this human-shaped target in the next month. I will mark out another empty dungeon as your exclusive practice room." Hearing this news, the 3rd graders were excited and secretly punched. This reward was exactly what they wanted. After Anduin developed this human-shaped target, it immediately became a hot commodity in the entire academy. Everyone wanted to use it to practice. After all, the progress and strength that can be seen with the naked eye is the most exciting. However, there was only one in grades 1 to 5 before, and Anduin specially allocated one to the seniors. Although the seniors would not come to snatch it from them, they still had to queue up for half a day every day to use it. Now there is a grade-specific one. Although it is only for 1 month, it doesn't matter. As long as they get first place next month, it will be theirs forever. Anduin then pointed to the 3 pairs of leather boots on the table next to him and said, "These are 3 pairs of alchemical props boots made of high-quality cowhide. They have multiple functions and the magic effect can last for 2 years. You can choose to take this prop or accept my training." Mona and Jenny chose to accept Anduin's training without thinking. They worked so hard for this. And Ibrahimovic has been training under Anduin for a long time, so he chose a pair of low-profile face shoes. Okay, happy times are short-lived. After distributing the rewards, Anduin quickly put away the faint smile on his face, and then looked at everyone with a stern face. Next is the discipline announcement session that everyone likes to see. As Anduin's face changed, the atmosphere in the entire public lounge suddenly became cold, and the people who were originally happy also put away their smiles at this time. At this time, they only felt uneasy. These people almost forgot that there was still punishment waiting for them. 3rd grader Harder Chris, 2nd grader Gare Murray, 4th grader Dante Mulenga. Anduin narrowed his eyes slightly. "It's you again. The 3 of you have been walking side by side in the corridor for a long time. What's wrong? Do you think that standing in a row at 3 people makes you look very capable and impressive, as if the whole corridor belongs to you?" As Anduin spoke, the 3 people who were called stood up straight. They looked a little embarrassed and a little unimpressed. Obviously, this was not the first time they were punished. "I don't understand it." Looking at the expressions of the 3 people, Anduin smiled coldly. "Why has it been so long, and there are still people who make such low-level mistakes? This is not the first time you 3 have violated the rules. Maybe I was too lenient in punishing you, or maybe you have become too strong and are immune to the punishment of push-ups." Anduin glanced coldly at the other young wizards over the 3 people. "It seems that ordinary punishments are no longer painful to you." Anduin walked down the stairs slowly. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, all stand up. Anduin shouted at the crowd. The students he called stood up, but their faces were still confused. Faced with these few people who violated the rules again and again, why didn't you help them? Have you given up on them? Anduin glanced at the crowd with a bad look. Chapter 284. Joint punishment, asking for monthly ticket recommendation. The 3 people who violated the rules were the most terrified at this time. They didn't understand why Anduin was going to get angry at the others in the same grade when it was clearly their own fault. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade students who also stood up were trembling all over because of Anduin's shouting. They didn't understand what they had done wrong. Continuous violations of discipline have made you three companions lose your sense of shame and collective honor. Anduin looked at the three people, and then looked at their classmates. What makes me even more sad is that you knew that they still had many bad habits that could not be changed, but you didn't help them in time. Now Slytherin is no longer the house that only cares about itself. What is the last of the three principles of Slytherin? Tell me loudly. Anduin's expression was cold, and his eyes stared at everyone without a trace of emotion. It is to correct attitude, unity and friendship, and mutual respect. Ibrahimovic reacted very quickly and took the lead in answering. Louder. Anduin suddenly roared. Correct attitude, unity and friendship, and mutual respect. The three grades, including the three students who violated the rules, shouted in unison. Can you see attitude from these three? Can you see respect? And you, I don't see any sign of unity and friendship at all. Anduin glanced fiercely at the people who stood up, and then turned his head to look at the three people who were trembling with fear. I know, you have violated the rules too many times, and you have been punished too many times, so you don't feel anything anymore, right? Anduin slowly walked to the side of the three people, his voice low and cold. No, we were just careless. The third-year Hardel Chris was frightened by Anduin's current state and trembled all over, and replied with a chill. It doesn't matter, I will let you learn what unity, respect, and attitude are. Anduin's sharp eyes pierced several people's lives. After saying this to the three people, Anduin turned back to the stone platform and glanced at everyone coldly. It seems that a single punishment can no longer make people learn to be respectful, so from now on, I will implement the collective responsibility system for violations of discipline. Collective responsibility. The students who stood up didn't understand what Anduin meant, and looked at each other in a panic. Anduin seemed to be afraid that no one could understand him, so he spoke in a low and gentle voice. If a person violates the rules for the first time, he will be punished by doing 50 push-ups. If a person violates the rules twice, I think it means that your entire grade has not learned to help him properly, so the whole grade will be punished. And if he violates the rules 3 times, I will think that you, as boys or girls, want to give up on him. I cannot tolerate such behavior, so if the same gender is punished, the whole school will be punished. If it exceeds 3 times, the whole school will be punished. If you violate the rules, let all the students in the school help you correct it. After listening to the chief's explanation, all the young wizards who stood up felt a chill in their hearts. What did it mean? If one person made a mistake, the whole grade would be punished. And the 3 people who violated the rules before now felt their legs weak. When they turned their heads to look at their classmates, it seemed that the eyes cast at them were full of malice. If they followed this punishment system, wouldn't they be hated by everyone if they violated the rules in the future? What are you waiting for? All the 2nd, 3rd and 4th graders, get ready for push-ups. There is not enough space on the steps, so find an empty space for yourselves. Anduin gave the order in a tone as hard as iron without any mercy. After hearing the order, everyone could only disperse obediently and bent down. Under Anduin's supervision, the young wizards of the 3 grades did a full 50 push-ups without any discount. Due to the large number of people in this punishment, in addition to the stone platform, the open space in front of the steps, and even the gaps between the tables, many people were lying down. To be honest, those young wizards who were not punished felt very uncomfortable watching their classmates being punished at such a close distance. You have to know that many of them have never violated the discipline, and there are also many girls. The standard 50 push-ups are like taking half of their lives for them. Many people started to wail because of the pain halfway through, and they were trembling and sweating. These sounds were transmitted to the ears of the people at the long table next to them, making them feel even more creepy. Finally, this punishment that made everyone tremble was over. The young wizards who stood up again were sweating and gasping for breath. Although the 3 young wizards who violated the rules had gradually become accustomed to this kind of corporal punishment because they were punished frequently every week, they were under more psychological pressure. The punishment for violating the rules is over. You can remember the lesson this time. If you commit the same offense again, the punishment will be increased. At the same time, the rest of you should remember that it is also your responsibility to help your companions abide by the rules. Under the lingering gaze of the crowd, Anduin announced the end of the punishment. At this time, the young wizards who accepted the punishment breathed a sigh of relief, and no one knew what they thought of the 3 violators in their hearts. But at this moment, Anduin threw them another bombshell. Although the daily discipline has been reported, there are still exam violations. I am very sad to tell you one thing. In this monthly exam, cheating was found in one person. Hearing this, the public lounge exploded instantly. This monthly exam related to grade owners actually hit someone there to cheat. Did he have the guts to do it? The person involved, Hades, suddenly froze all over, and felt a cold current rushing from the soles of his feet. But when he looked up at the stone platform, he found that Anduin was looking at him vaguely. His heart skipped a beat, and he knew it was over. It turned out that the cheating method he had been proud of had long been seen by the chief. "Hey deal Chris, do you have anything to say? Maybe you can quibble." Anduin lowered his eyes lightly, and said coldly without a trace of emotion. At this time, everyone around looked at Hades in surprise, including other people in the same grade, including Ibrahimovic, staring at him in disbelief. Hades stood up trembling. "I'm sorry, Chief. I plead guilty. I'm just too scared. I'm not good at many subjects and I'm afraid of dragging down the grade. So you can trample on the honor of the academy. Don't respect the hard work of others." Anduin opened his eyes and stared at him, and saw him shudder. "I'm sorry, Chief, I have brought shame to the students in the 3rd grade. If you want to punish someone, punish me alone." Hades had been scared by Anduin's collective punishment method before, and now he just wanted to take it alone, otherwise he would be too ashamed to face anyone in the academy in the future. Chapter 285 You come to count, ask for monthly ticket recommendation ticket. You know that you are responsible for your own actions, so you are not a coward, but do you think you can break the rules I set with just one word? Anduin looked at him without mercy. Your cheating has made you achieve a score that does not match your actual level. Now all your personal scores have been cleared. Do you accept it? I accept it. Hades' face turned pale. This public execution in front of everyone was more painful than killing him, but he could not refute it. And the 3rd grade you belong to has also benefited because of you. I will clear all the scores and owners of the 3rd grade, including the scores and owners of your 1st grade, including the scores and owners of your grade leader Ibrahimovic, and the individual 1st grade. Do you accept it, Hades? Do you accept it, Ibrahimovic? Anduin continued expressionlessly. What? Hades was like a bolt from the blue. His expression was full of panic and uneasiness, and then he turned his head tremblingly and looked at his colleagues and Ibrahimovic around him. At this time, the 3rd-year wizards turned their heads and looked at Hades involuntarily, their eyes full of anger and resentment. They worked together for so long to get the honor, is it going to be lost? At this time, Hades finally understood why Anduin had discovered his cheating behavior long ago but did not expose it on the spot. First given, then deprived, this feeling of gain and loss, now all integrated into the eyes of the 3rd-year students, and every time he was stared at by someone, he felt more uncomfortable and self-blame. I obey the arrangement, Chief. Ibrahimovic also glanced at Hades, but did not show any hatred, but his eyes were full of determination. It's all my fault. I didn't pay attention to Hades when he needed help, because I was blinded by rewards and owners, and I only knew to constantly add pressure to everyone. Hades would do such a thing. We are all responsible. The 3rd grade is a collective. We are willing to share the responsibility for the mistakes. Ibrahimovic tilted his head and glanced at his colleagues around him, and said with a firm face. Seeing Ibrahimovic's clear eyes and his unyielding answer, this united and responsible attitude also infected all the 3rd graders. Then they looked at Hades with less resentment and more understanding, determination and disappointment. Wow, Ibrahimovic, I'm sorry. After hearing what Ibrahimovic said, Hades was the one who felt the most uncomfortable. At this time, he was so guilty that he could no longer control the tears in his eyes and sobbed uncontrollably. Not bad, you're responsible. Everyone should learn from Ibrahimovic and the 3rd graders. Anduin nodded and nodded to Ibrahimovic in approval. However, discipline is discipline. If you violate it, you must accept the punishment. Snake Academy boys, all stand up. With his order, all the boys in the academy stood up. Hades, you have already made a mistake once before. According to the rules, the punishment is upgraded. All the boys in the school will be punished. If you violate the rules again in the future, the whole school will bear the consequences. Anduin looked at Hades coldly. All boys, prepared for push-ups, 50. Seeing Anduin still ruthlessly executing the punishment, everyone felt cold in their hearts. They knew that this chief would not compromise on maintaining discipline. They had to find an empty seat and crawl down like they had just come. But this is hard for the boys in grades 2, 3, and 4. They just did 50 push-ups because of sitting together. The soreness in their bodies has not subsided yet. Another one? But the rules are cold-blooded and ruthless. As Anduin began to count, the young wizards could only tremble and complete the movement one by one. After only a dozen or so, the slowly dripping sweat had already formed a pool of water under them. The pain of muscle tearing every time they did it made them wail. "I'm a little tired at counting." Anduin looked at the painful expressions of the crowd and said leisurely. Hearing his words, the people who were punished felt relieved. Could it be that the chief saw that they were too miserable, so he planned to let them go? Anduin did not continue counting, but did not order them to stand up. Instead, he slowly walked to Hades' side and squatted down. "Hades, you have a good physique. I guess such a small punishment is nothing to you." Anduin smiled. Hades felt that his heart tightened for no reason. What did the chief mean? "Since punishment is dispensable to you, you can help me count the remaining numbers. It just saves me some energy." After saying that, Anduin pulled Hades up and said, "I counted to 23, you start from 24. Chief, I." After hearing what Anduin said to him, Hades was no longer just nervous and flustered. Now he felt like he was about to pee. "It was obviously me who made the mistake, but you asked me to execute the punishment for you. Aren't you roasting me on the fire?" After Hades stood up, he felt that all the male wizards in the academy were looking at him blankly. There were all kinds of emotions in their eyes, but there was no forgiveness. "Hurry up, speak louder." Anduin saw Hades standing there, trembling all over, and couldn't help but yelling. "Yes, Chief, 24, 25, 26, Hades counted quickly in an extremely trembling voice. This feeling of being publicly executed for the crime was too uncomfortable. He just wanted to end today's nightmare quickly. Every time these little wizards did a push-up and every time they wailed, it was like someone was branding him with a red iron. "You shouted too fast and your voice was not loud enough. Do you still want me to teach you how to count? Count again." Anduin scolded mercilessly. He wanted to completely break this little wizard psychologically today and make him remember this day for the rest of his life. Yes, Hades now felt that his whole body was soft, as if he would break if someone touched him lightly. Now he relied entirely on instinct to stay awake. Then Hades counted again and again under the personal supervision of the chief. After he counted 10 times in a row, he couldn't bear it anymore and started to cry loudly. But under Anduin's scolding, he continued to carry out the punishment with a choked voice. Listening to Hades' shrill cries, the people who were doing push-ups had already dissipated a lot of their resentment towards Hades. From the cries, they gradually realized how uncomfortable Hades was now. The fear caused by guilt made everyone feel pity for him. And more importantly, they were afraid of Anduin. He almost roasted everyone on the fire, and Hades was almost driven crazy. Chapter 286 Green-haired girl, asking for monthly ticket recommendation. After experiencing this short and long punishment, these little wizards were exhausted like dead dogs. Although Hades himself did not complete the entire punishment, he was like a trance. After executing the punishment, he still stood in the crowd in a daze until his third-year companions carried him back to his seat. After the punishment, Anduin also announced the end of the monthly meeting. The rewards given to the third-year students were all taken away and replaced by the second-place fourth-year students. The top 3 individual students were also replaced by the fourth-year group leader Joey. But now, no one in Slytherin is enjoying the joy. More of them are relieved as if they were in another world. It is finally over. Every minute of this monthly meeting is like a year. After Hades' lesson, the little wizards now dare not have any fluke mentality. From the next day, all the little wizards seem to be back to the second day of school, and they live in fear every day. Among them, Hades has changed the most. He has changed from a slight boy to a study maniac. Every day, whether in self-study or daily life, he demands himself with high intensity like self-torture. From that day on, he got up the earliest every day, maintained the strictest discipline, and studied the latest. It was as if he had become a different person. At the same time, the little wizards in the academy began to learn to care about their classmates. Everyone would supervise each other every day to ensure that no one violated the rules. They would call each other in the morning. When eating, if anyone moved too much or made too loud noises, they would be reminded immediately. And not only among the same grade, even if they were across grades, as long as they were students in the same academy, they would help and supervise each other. After all, it was not just themselves who were unlucky for violating the rules now, so the whole Slytherin looked so happy and united. But they had no choice but to be united. If they were not united and friendly, their chief would help them to unite. Didn't you see what Hades has become now? He was almost a role model of morality. In this state of everyone's mental tension, everyone's daily life and study gradually became a habit. In fact, many of the disciplines set by Anduin are not very strict to implement. In summary, they are nothing more than housework and etiquette. Before, everyone was used to being lazy, and the deviation from their long-term rhythm of life was too great, so they could not adapt quickly for a while. But after Anduin's forced correction, the little snakes gradually got used to the self-disciplined life. On the contrary, after this kind of life gradually became a daily routine, the little snakes became addicted to self-discipline. After all, it is easy to form a contrast when you appear next to others in neat clothes and neat marches every day. At first, other colleges would laugh at the people in the Snake Academy for being hypocritical, but when they maintained such norms, after a month or two, they instantly became real serious people. Soon, the little wizards of other colleges found that the gap between them and the Snake Academy was widened, which was not only reflected in their performance, but also in daily life. When eating, there is always a group of people who are silent and polite. When walking, you can always meet a group of people who are arranged in an orderly manner, greet people when they see them, and they are all dressed handsomely. This kind of comparison can easily make people from other colleges feel rude and impolite, just like a real noble gentleman and a commoner, and even make many people feel a little inferior. So Slytherin's persistence actually influenced many students from other colleges. 2 months after the start of school, many professors found that there were some subtle changes among these students. They paid more attention to dressing properly, and there was less noise when eating. What's more outrageous is that it seems that these little wizards have become more polite. This even made the administrator Filch feel very uncomfortable. After all, these students used to be naughty, and suddenly they became obedient, which made people feel as if something was missing. The little snakes in Slytherin also felt this change. They are different from others. They are Slytherins, so this self-disciplined life makes them feel extremely proud. But not everyone is happy about the changes in the Snake Academy. Hog soon found that he seemed to be unemployed and had not caught a student who violated the rules for a long time. But Anduin has no time to care about Hog's work status now. He is dealing with a female wizard now. At this time, outside Hagrid's hut, Anduin was petting a cat while leading the training of the top 3 in the first 2 months, while Ibrahimovic and Bill were sent by him to help him test samples of tactical equipment. Recently, he has made a lot of product improvements for his alchemy business. In fact, it was mainly to reduce costs and make some low-end props. He now wants to test the functional limits and durability of these props. The development of the magic lathe is progressing smoothly, and it is expected that a trial version will be made within this year. If the lathe can be released in advance, then his alchemy workshop will have the hope of opening next year, so product testing is imperative. But now, there is a junior female wizard standing next to Anduin, with green fluffy hair, sitting on the fence of the hub next to him, shaking her short legs. So what are you going to do? You seem to be a prefect of Slytherin. Why did Charlie suddenly find me, a little wizard from Hufflepuff? The girl looked at the handsome man holding a cat in front of her and asked bluntly. Tunks, why do you have to dye your hair green? It doesn't look good. Anduin stared at the other's green hair, feeling a little uncomfortable. As for why I asked you to come here, I want to ask you for help with something. This thing will also be good for you. This little wizard is Tunks, who impressed him at the beginning of the school year. Anduin is very interested in her disguise magus who can change her appearance at will. After Charlie entered school, he was also taken by Bill to participate in training, so he asked Charlie to help make an appointment with Tunks to see if there is a chance to contact and study her abilities. I can become whatever I want to become. Is it your business? Tunks rolled her eyes at Anduin. I'm not interested in you Slytherins. It was you who drove my mother out of the house. It is the Black family that has a grudge with you. You can't hate the whole school just because they are from Slytherin. Besides, I am still a good friend of your school's prefect, Marin Macmillan. Anduin, who was asking for help, persuaded with a smile. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 287. Stubborn Tunks, asking for monthly recommendation votes. What does that have to do with me? Just like the Black family and the Lestrange family, you Slytherins are all the same. I still remember my mother once insulted her sister Bella and despised my father for being a muggle wizard. Don't you look down on wizards who have connections with muggles the most? Tonks spoke rather impolitely, and it was obvious that she hated pure-blood families. Then you have to thank me. I was the one who sent the Lestrange family to Azkaban. And don't you know that I am a Muggle-born wizard myself? Your prejudice is actually no different from the prejudices of many pure-blood wizards. Anduin smiled softly. It was the first time he boasted about this to others. Are you telling the truth? Tonks looked at him suspiciously, then curled her lips. Then why is your academy so different? Everyone is as serious as the nobles, not at ease at all. They were not like this a year ago, and I don't think self-discipline and courtesy represent nobility. I just require them to treat myself with the same standards. Anduin pulled the catkin in his hand and smiled slightly. You mean, you made them become like this? Tonks tilted her head to look at the people who were training next to her, wondering why these guys had to maintain that strange posture. I don't believe it. Why do they listen to you so much? Because they have no choice. Anduin laughed, then followed Tonks's eyes and looked at the people who were standing still, then blew a whistle loudly. The people who heard the signal quickly put away their standing postures, and regardless of the pain all over their bodies, they immediately lined up and ran towards Anduin. Chief. The 6 people, led by Jenny, stood in a row. Although their faces were sweaty and they were panting, they still stood straight and bowed their heads to report to Anduin respectfully. You should stand here for today's horse dance. Remember to do the extended training before going to bed at night. Now, the target is Hogwarts Castle. Run forward. Anduin's face was serious and he ordered sternly. Yes, Chief. Several people's eyes showed a look of relief. After responding with full momentum, they turned around and ran towards the castle in an orderly manner. Tonks, who was standing aside, saw that these Slytherin students were so obedient under Anduin's orders, and she couldn't help but believe his words a little. Let's go. It's almost time for lunch in the afternoon. I'll treat you to dinner. Let's talk while we eat. Instead of persuading Tonks, he held the cat and walked to the hut by himself. When Tonks heard that there was something to eat, she immediately became interested. With a big jump, she jumped off the railing with agility and followed Anduin with great interest. When she turned to the house, she saw an outdoor kitchen with a wooden shed against the wall. The most eye-catching thing inside was a brick stove with a large iron pot on it. On the stone workbench next to it was a huge wooden chopping board, and on the side were various bottles and jars that she had never seen before. When she looked past the outdoor kitchen, there was a long stone barbecue table next to it. The iron mesh on it was clean, very clean, but the faint charred lines on it still showed signs of frequent use. Can you cook? If you can, come and help. Anduin pointed to the barbecue table in front of him. I'm a Hufflepuff. Don't look at me as small. My cooking skills are definitely better than yours. Tonks' hair turned fiery red and she said with an indignant look on her face. Anduin smiled non-committally, then raised his chin and pointed at the stove. That's good, we're having charcoal grilled pork chops today. You help me boil the water first, I'll take care of the pork chops. Anduin then took out a large piece of T-bone warthog pork chop from his space ring and threw it on the stove with a bang. Tonks' eyes widened when she saw such a large piece of pork chop, but she still looked at Anduin with some doubts. Why boil water? Can't you just marinate it and grill it? Cook it thoroughly before grilling it, the meat will be softer and more tender. After Anduin explained casually, he took out his wand to direct the kitchen utensils and seasonings, and started to operate on his own, explaining to her while he was operating. First, pierce holes on both sides of the ribs to make it easier to season them. Then sprinkle salt, black pepper, garlic powder, and oregano powder on both sides, and simmer them with onions, garlic, bay leaves, and fresh thyme for 30 minutes, and then stir-fry them over the fire. This way, both the taste and flavor will be unexpectedly good. Anduin used the cutting spell to divide the large piece of ribs into several pieces. Just as he was about to pierce the holes, he found that Tonks was swallowing her saliva and staring at him blankly. Why are you still standing there? Light a fire and boil some water. Oh, Tonks drooled just by listening to Anduin's description, and forgot to act for a while. From what you said, you seem to be very familiar with cooking. Do you cook often? Tonks asked curiously while helping. I have less time to cook recently, but I am still quite picky about food. I built the kitchen here. If you're interested in cooking, you can come and use it. Just say hello to Hagrid. Anduin said distractedly while handling the steak skillfully. Tonks curled her lips without commenting. This guy must be trying to tempt me with this. I don't know what he wants me to do for him. He is so attentive. By the way, what do you want me to do for you? For the sake of food, if it is not very difficult, I don't mind helping. Tunks was ready to test the other party first. In fact, I don't need you to do anything. I'm just curious about your ability to change your appearance. I want to study and develop this special ability with you. Anduin saw that Tunks was willing to give in, and replied with a smile. Disguise Magus. This is my natural magical talent. Even I don't understand what's going on. It's just like some people are born with a good levitation spell. Can this be studied? Tunks frowned slightly and asked in confusion. I'm the person who is good at levitation spells in your mouth. Anduin teased in his heart, that's because you don't understand the nature of magic deeply. Many natural magical talents can find answers from spells. Then what do you want to do? Tunks looked at the other party in confusion. Let's draw some blood first, and then figure out the direction and principle of the flow of magic power to see if it is a physical problem or a special kind of blood magic. Anduin said casually. Chapter 288 Magic Power Increase, asking for monthly ticket recommendation. When Anduin finished speaking and looked at Tunks again, she had already quietly run away 7 or 8 meters, and now she looked at Anduin with eyes looking at a monster. You're indeed a pervert. You tricked me here and now you want to draw my blood. Are you going to use me for a dark magic experiment? Tunks looked at Anduin warily, then drew out her wand and pointed it at him nervously. At this time, Anduin's image of a gourmet wizard had changed to an evil dark wizard in her eyes. Seeing this scene, Anduin laughed dumbly. This girl must have misunderstood the blood draw. After all, in the wizarding world, as long as it is related to blood, it is easy to associate it with dark wizards. You may have misunderstood. The blood draw I mentioned is just to measure the magic value. This is just a special method I developed. You don't have to be so nervous. Anduin looked at the girl in front of him and comforted her softly. I don't believe it. Tunks shook her head with a wary look on her face, and her hair instantly turned blue, as if she was expressing her mood. Anduin shook his head helplessly. At this time, the people who were practicing in the distance also noticed the movement here. When they saw Anduin appear in the kitchen, they knew there was something delicious, so they immediately stopped their training and gathered around. Brother Anduin, what delicious food are you going to make today? Bill approached with shining eyes, and happened to notice Tunks not far away. Aren't you the Hufflepuff student who can transform at will? What? You also come here to eat and drink for free? What do you mean by eating and drinking for free? There is a dark wizard standing next to you, aren't you afraid? Tunks looked at everyone carefully. She didn't know why these Gryffindors were hanging out with Slytherins. Dark wizard? You mean Brother Anduin? Bill and Charles beside him laughed after hearing what Tunks said. Are you kidding? He is a recognized combat hero of the Ministry of Magic. He once captured several Death Eaters alone. You can almost say that he is the nemesis of dark wizards. Then he always draws blood, didn't you know that? Tunks had never paid attention to the news in the wizarding world before. Maybe she had seen it before, but Anduin has been very low-key in the past 2 years, so no one has ever mentioned it to her. Drawing blood. Charles raised his eyebrows when he heard what Tunks said, then tilted his head to look at Anduin. Are you going to let her receive training as well? She is very special. You actually value her so much. Her ability is very special. I want to try to see if I can help her develop this transformation ability. Maybe I can find the secret of the disguise magus. Anduin tilted his head and smiled, explaining to Charles. Tunks was puzzled to see that the others didn't react at all when they heard Anduin was going to draw blood. What are you talking about? Didn't you hear that he was going to draw blood? Only dark wizards would do such evil things when they want to curse people. You may have misunderstood Tunks. Charlie, who had run to the side after bringing her here, also came over at this time. Brother Anduin drew blood just to measure your magic reserves. We have all had blood drawn before. Do you know that my initial magic value is over 100? Brother Anduin praised me as a genius. Charlie, as a first-year student, was quite familiar with Tunks. After seeing him say this with a smug look on his face, Tunks also had some hesitation in her heart. Did she really misunderstand him? These Gryffindors didn't look like they were lying. Tunks hesitated for a while, but slowly put down the wand in her hand. Then how do you prove it? Although Tunks put down her wand, she still didn't get close, and asked vigilantly from a distance. What's the point of testing it on the spot? Charlie said with his hands behind his head and a smile. Then Bill and Charlie demonstrated the magic meter to Tunks. Tunks was stunned, and the current magic values of the two are measured on the spot. Bill's was 276 and Charlie's was 106. Does this number represent the magic power contained in your body? Tunks widened her eyes in disbelief and asked closer. Yes, I remember that when school started last year, I only had 143. It has increased so much in just 1 year. No wonder Big Brother Anduin said that after the 3rd year, the magic power of wizards will be greatly improved. Bill pointed to the number on the disc inside. Yes, Big Brother Anduin said that the magic value of freshmen who have just entered school is about 50 to 80. I was able to exceed 100 at the beginning of school, which proves that my magic talent is very high. Similarly, my brother Bill's magic value is also very good. His magic value is higher than Charles's at the same time. Charlie also came to the side to show off. That's because Bill started training a year earlier than I did, Charles said, holding a large basin filled with cooked ribs, and sitting next to the grill. Anduin's training method can steadily increase the upper limit of magic power. Of course, the most obvious improvement is magic sensitivity. Those who received Anduin's training privately named the training they underwent Anduin's training method, and Anduin did not specifically object to it. In addition to training, the growth of magic power is actually closely related to nutrition. Anduin, who also came over, sat down slowly, and then lit a fire on the grill. The magic power of underage wizards grows very fast. Generally, it is about 50 to 80 when they enter school. In the 2nd year, the natural increase is about 50. If they are trained, the increase can reach 60 to 70. Anduin put the stakes on the grill and continued, there will be a larger span of growth at the age of 12 to 13. The increase varies greatly from person to person, generally between 50 to 100. After training, it can stably exceed 100. Bill's increase can reach 130. He really has great potential. This kind of magic increase is crucial to the growth of wizards, but if there is a lack of guidance, it will also cause danger to wizards. That's why wizards choose to send their children to Hogwarts during the magic growth period. I've heard from Professor Flitwick that these large wizard schools have special protective magic to prevent wizards from being injured by the magic in their bodies or turning into obscurus. Since the invention of the wand, magic guidance has become easier for wizards. After that, the young wizard will maintain a trend of 50 to 100 increase until the age of 15, which is the 5th grade, and then begin to slowly decline. At the age of 16 or 17, the increase will return to about 50. So by the time of graduation, the wizard's magic power value is roughly between 350 to 600. The difference is still quite large. The average graduate is about 400 to 500. Chapter 289 Natural Magic, asking for monthly recommendation tickets. After graduation, the physique and magic power of wizards will gradually increase with age, but the increase will not be that high. I estimate that the annual increase will decrease with age, and if magic is rarely used, or if malnutrition occurs, the magic value may even decrease. These are simple to say, but in fact, they have a lot to do with the individual physique of each wizard, so the difference between two wizards can sometimes be very different. Anduin silently turned the barbecue and popularized relevant knowledge to everyone. So the higher the magic value of the wizard, the stronger the strength. Although Tunks was attracted by the sizzling grilled pork chops, she still asked the question she was most curious about. That's not necessarily true. Strength is not completely equated with magic power. In fact, no matter how much or how little magic power one has, it is enough for most people in their lifetime. Some wizards are born with good physiques. Although their magic starting point and growth rate are very high, it is still useless if they neglect learning, are mentally weak, and are not good at using spells. And some wizards have low magic power, but if they practice spells diligently and have a strong will, their strength should not be underestimated, just like Professor Flitwick in the charms class. Due to his race, his magic power is definitely not particularly high among adult wizards, but he still became the champion of the duel competition with his superb strength. Then Anduin focused his attention on Charlie. Charlie, you have a good physique and talent. I think this is due to your mother's careful care, but if you are complacent because of this and neglect to practice, you may achieve nothing in the future. Do you understand? I see, Brother Anduin. Charlie was pointed out by Anduin and immediately sat up straight and nodded in agreement. Tunks saw that Anduin was talking very clearly and everyone around him respected him so much. She knew that she had wrongly accused him before. However, she still looked at Anduin strangely. You said before that you wanted to draw blood because you wanted to study my ability. What is the relationship between my transformation talent and magic? You can only know it after testing. Because if this talent is a certain talent that you have awakened, then this talent also needs magic to drive it. And if you use magic frequently, you will exercise your own magic activity. The magic value will slowly increase with frequent use when you're young. Maybe the increase is not as large as during school, but over the years, your magic value should be different from ordinary people. Anduin looked at him and smiled. You know all this. He even understood the trend of magic increase before entering school. Is this a genius? In Tunk's eyes, Anduin had a sense of unfathomable. Because I am like this, Anduin thought to himself. He started to practice deliberately when his magic burst out when he was young, and as a result, his magic value actually exceeded that of his peers. But Anduin didn't intend to explain this to Tunks, and just continued, if your magic value is not much different from that of ordinary wizards, then it means that your metamorph magus is actually an instinct, or a kind of mutation. Just like some people are born with white hair, and three-headed dogs are born with 3 heads, it means that this ability is unique to you and cannot be copied, and it is difficult for you to improve it with external forces. So there is such a difference. Then if my metamorph magus ability really increases my magic power, it means that there is still room for improvement in my ability. Tunks thought of this and said excitedly. It still needs to be tested, but in theory, your metamorph magus has other abilities besides changing the color of hair. For example, the length of hair, changes in appearance, etc. Anduin asked, looking at the other party's bright yellow hair. Well, in addition to hair color, I can now change the shape of my nose and mouth, but the length of hair cannot be changed. Tunks said while demonstrating to everyone, and saw her nose and mouth slowly changing. Her nose was either high or flat, and her lips were either thick or thin. It seems that your metamorph magus still has the potential to grow. In the future, you may be able to change more and more parts. Anduin nodded. By the way, you often change your appearance. Won't you forget your original appearance? It would be embarrassing if you forgot what you look like at the beginning while changing. Even if it is just a little different, people who are familiar with you will not recognize you. No. Tunk shook her head. How can I describe it to you? Transfiguration is like a switch for me. As long as it is turned off, it will return to its original state immediately. Only the hair color takes some time, just like fading takes time. Yeah. Anduin's eyes lit up when he heard Tunk's description. From your description, it seems that it is an ability that needs magic to drive it. Maybe that switch you mentioned is the key. It may be a unique transformation magic pattern, or some kind of mutated blood magic. Is it true? I have always used it according to my mood and never paid attention to it. Tunk suddenly became interested in her own transformation ability. Then test it for me too. Anduin nodded, and then signaled Bill to test Tunks with the magic meter. After a short time, everyone saw that Tunk's current magic value was as high as 124 points, about twice that of a normal first-year wizard. Wow, it's almost catching up with my magic value in the second year. Bill was shocked when he saw this value. This proves my guess. Your metamorph magus should be some kind of awakened natural magic, but you have always been driven by instinct. Anduin nodded when he saw the value, which was almost what he expected. Then how should I train this ability? Is it enough to change shape frequently? Tunks was a little happy to find that her magic power was so high, and asked Anduin with a smile. Frequent use will definitely increase proficiency, but this is not efficient. You can't always change your face all the time. Anduin shook his head. The next step is to find the source and see if this special magic has formed magic patterns in your body. If there are magic patterns, as long as you master it, you can quickly improve. Then how to find the source? Tunks asked hurriedly when she heard that there was a way. The simplest method is to sense it yourself. You know your own body best. But you are a low-level wizard now, and your magic sensitivity is too low. It is difficult for you to sense the magic outside the body, let alone the magic inside your own body. Anduin shook his head. Chapter 290 Bloodline Refining. What should we do? Tunks saw Anduin's calmness and knew that he must have a solution. My idea is to do 2 things at the same time. I'm currently developing an observation-type alchemical tool with strong penetration. If it can be developed, I can directly study the direction of your magic from outside the body, and then find the source along the direction of the magic. The other method depends on you. If your magic perception is low, then you just need to find a way to improve it. You can receive training from me to exercise your magic sensitivity. With your talent, the progress should not be slow. When your perception strength is improved, you will be able to sense the source of your transformation yourself. This was also Anduin's original plan, to train Tunks and let her help him find the secret of the Metamorph Magus. If it really succeeds, it will be much more powerful than the Polar Juice Potion, and it will not be afraid of things like the Revelation Potion. In other words, you'll teach me how to control this ability. Tunks didn't fully understand what Anduin said, but she roughly understood what he meant. Yes, Metamorph Magus should be related to Transfiguration. In addition to training in magic perception, strengthening your Transfiguration attainment should also be helpful. However, I hope that when you fully master this magic, you can share it with me. I'm very interested in new magic. Anduin directly pointed it out to Tunks. No problem, as my teacher, if I can really master this ability, you will naturally not be stingy. Tunks' expression changed very quickly, and she already called Anduin her teacher. Seeing this, Anduin nodded with satisfaction, and then looked at Bill. Tunks' basic training will be carried out with Charlie. You're responsible for supervising them, and I will teach her Transfiguration alone. Tunks' mood became quite good after reaching a consensus with Anduin, and then they enjoyed the delicious grilled pork chops with everyone next to the hut. In the following time, Tunks would come to the Forbidden Forest hut after class every day and follow Bill for corresponding training. Anduin would also take 1 or 2 days a week to teach her Transfiguration. Under Anduin's training, Tunks' individual qualities and Transfiguration skills were improving rapidly. Of course, this was also related to her own strong talent. At the same time, after a long period of contact, Anduin collected more information and data about the Metamorph Magus. Frequent use of this kind of transformation magic will consume magic power, but it consumes less than the conversion spell and Transfiguration. In addition, with the improvement of magic sensitivity and Transfiguration skills, Tunks' transformation areas began to increase. At first, it was the color of the pupils, the position and size of the eye sockets and eyelids, and then the ears, cheeks, cheekbones, and even teeth, which could be transformed accordingly, and the range of change became larger and larger. Later, she could even completely change her face. By the end of the 5th year, Tunks often wore Anduin's face and ran to scare Slytherin students, which once again made her feel how afraid of Anduin the little wizards of the Serpentine Court were. Obviously, there is a big height difference, but as long as she has Anduin's face, all the wizards of the Serpent Court will stand at attention and salute her. If Anduin hadn't discovered her and scolded her several times, she would definitely enjoy playing with it. However, after long-term research, coupled with the feedback from Tunks' self-perception, Anduin found that Metamorph Magus is more like a blood magic. If so, it means that this special magic is likely to have no runes. The biggest difference between blood magic and other magic is that it basically has no runes and it is difficult to form a spell, which means that this kind of magic cannot be learned. Most of the blood magic in the wizarding world is inherited in the form of heredity, and this kind of magic will be more obvious on magical animals. In the long history of wizards, everyone's research on blood magic is more about using blood or body tissue as a medium to curse or use black magic, or applying it to potions, blood encryption, strengthening blood magic ability, etc. Few wizards can copy this magic by learning. There are only 2 ways to actively master blood magic. The first is the blood contract. After signing this contract with a magical animal or intelligent creature, you'll have the opportunity to master a related blood magic. For example, Anduin suspected that Dumbledore had signed a blood contract with his phoenix, but this method would make the connection between the two very close. He just wanted to study Metamorph Magus, and he would not sign a blood contract with Tunks for this, and Tunks might not be willing to do so. The second method was the one he saw in the Travis family magic book. Anduin opened the metal magic book in his hand and looked at the technology called blood refining on it, and fell into deep thought. It can be said that the ancestors of the Travis family are really not short of geniuses, especially in the field of black magic and curses, but the means are also quite cruel. Just like the blood refining introduced above, this method can copy a certain blood magic or blood characteristics of a magical animal or wizard. The specific method is to extract part of the target's blood and fur, then mix them with your own blood and fur, and add mandrake, the fruit of the airship plum, the tender branches of the poisonous tentacles, the liquid grass picked at the full moon, and the powder of the 2-horned beast's horn. Mix them in a crystal bottle, and make sure that all materials are immersed in the blood of the 2, and then leave it in a dark place for 7 days. During this period, it must not be looked at or disturbed. After 7 days, the crystal bottle will become a colorless transparent liquid. This liquid is highly volatile and will completely evaporate within a few minutes after opening the bottle cap, so the subsequent work must be fast and efficient. After obtaining the liquid, use it according to the records in the magic book to carve a kind of blood refining array. During the carving, input your own magic power to keep the shape, and the carrier is preferably leather. After the array is carved, use the Soul Reaper or Confusion spell to drive the target to use the blood ability you want to obtain, and bleed the target when using it, so that the magic blood will be stained with the array. When the magic circle is full of blood and the flow of magic power can be clearly sensed, the ritual is considered complete, and then the magic circle pattern will be hidden, and the person who has also whacked blood can use the corresponding blood magic with the help of this magic circle. In addition to copying the corresponding blood magic, this ritual magic can also copy the physical characteristics of some magical creatures, such as physical strength, etc. Chapter 291 Test. Just looking at the corresponding description, you may think that this ritual is nothing special, but when Anduin saw the case of Trav's ancestor who had used this blood transfusion, he felt the evil of this magic. When Trav's ancestor was doing blood transfusion, he used it more as a tattoo and drew the magic circle directly on his body. The most successful case was a wizard named Sigurd in the family. He once captured a Norwegian ridgeback dragon, and then used a large amount of dragon blood in his own blood to draw the blood transfusion magic circle all over his body. When he completed the magic circle, he used the Soul Reaper curse to control the Norwegian ridgeback to tighten its skin, and then bled it, while he bathed in the dragon's blood. The Norwegian ridgeback eventually died of blood loss, and Sigurd gained a powerful defensor comparable to that of a dragon. Of course, the ending of this Sigurd was also quite dramatic. After he gained a defensor comparable to that of a dragon, he became crazy and plundered resources everywhere with his powerful force. Then he met Gryffindor, one of the founders of Hogwarts. The founder of the Lion House hated evil and loved duels. After seeing Sigurd's evil deeds, he naturally chose to stand up and challenge Sigurd to a duel. According to the records in the magic book, the first duel between Gryffindor and Sigurd ended in a tie. Sigurd made it difficult for Gryffindor to break through with his strong defensor, but he could not defeat Gryffindor either. Then both of them chose to retreat temporarily and agreed to a second duel. During the two duels, Gryffindor actually found Sigurd's weakness. That is, when Sigurd completed the blood refining ceremony, a leaf stuck to his shoulder during the dragon blood bath, and it became his only weakness. So in the second duel, Gryffindor seized this weakness and killed Sigurd. Since then, the sword in Gryffindor's hand has been sharp enough to easily pierce the dragon's skin. This record seemed a bit outrageous to Anduin, because no matter how you look at it, it looks like a fairy tale in Norse mythology, and it is unknown who copied whom. However, no matter how much of the content above is true, from a side point of view, this blood refining ritual is also quite powerful. It's just that the amount of bloodletting is a bit exaggerated. In all the records, the two steps of completing this ritual require a large amount of blood from the target. If it were Tunks, the first step would probably be dead. It seems that I have to do an experiment with other materials first. This magic circle is too old, and there may be room for improvement. And I also need to measure the required blood proficiency. Anduin closed the magic book and decided to find a magical animal to try first. Then he set his sights on a Tiber warthog in the park. The Tiber warthog's epidermis is also very strong. He plans to perform a blood refining ritual on a piece of ordinary cowhide to see if he can make the cowhide as tough as the Tiber warthog's skin. Moreover, the Tiber warthog has a good physique and a lot of blood, so it is more durable for experiments. Even if it is accidentally killed in the end, it can be turned into food. With a plan in mind, Anduin collected all the auxiliary materials, found a strong warthog to draw blood and shave, then took a few drops of his own blood and hair, mixed them with all the materials and put them into a crystal bottle, and found a place to seal it. After a week, when Anduin took out the bottle of mixed liquid, he found that it had indeed become transparent as the record said, just like a bottle of boiled water. However, in the process of drawing the magic circle later, the experiment went wrong. The evaporation speed of this potion was even more exaggerated than the record. Anduin had just started to draw, and only half of the potion in the crystal bottle was left. He was so scared that he quickly sealed the bottle cap. No wonder the first step consumes a lot of blood. At this evaporation speed, at least 20 times the standard amount of blood is needed to complete the magic circle. It seems that I have to think of a way. Anduin looked at this situation and began to think about it. Finally, he came up with an idea, which was to make a device that could connect to the crystal bottle, which was equivalent to connecting the engraving pen to the bottle cap, and then putting the bottle cap on the crystal bottle upside down, and directly use this engraving pen with potion to draw, just like putting an ink bottle on a pen, so as to reduce the waste of potion. This operation was quite easy for an alchemist like Anduin. After spending some time, he made a finished product. When operating it, he found that the effect was okay. Although the potion would evaporate, it could avoid a lot of waste. Except that it was a bit heavy, it was acceptable. After engraving the magic circle on the cowhide, he did not immediately use pig blood to wash it, but took out two alchemical props. One of the props was like a metal microscope, with a similar structure to an ordinary microscope, such as a mirror base, mirror arm, mirror barrel, stage, etc. However, in the middle of the stage, there was no light hole like a normal microscope, but an ordinary flat metal stage. The other alchemical prop was a magnifying glass with a round lens connected to a mirror handle. These two alchemical tools are the observation equipment that Anduin has just developed. They are actually the same type of equipment, but they are slightly different in strength. The magnifying glass-shaped observation instrument has good penetration, and can observe the flow of magic inside other alchemical tools through the materials, and the charms that are secretly engraved into the alchemical materials can also be seen clearly. With it, Anduin will be able to blatantly observe the charms in the product when he goes to the alchemical tool store in the future. The microscope-shaped observation instrument will be more effective, and can even penetrate the bodies of magical creatures to observe the flow of magic in their bodies. Unfortunately, it can only be observed and cannot be measured at present, otherwise the magic measuring instrument that requires blood drawing can be eliminated. Anduin used it to observe Tunks before, and therefore judged that Tunks' disguise magus belonged to blood magic. He used the observation instrument to observe the magic circle first. From the trend of the lines and the flow of magic above, Anduin roughly understood which parts of the magic circle were the core parts. Afterwards, he went to the magical zoo area in the Forbidden Forest, controlled the T-bow warthog, and then used electric current to stimulate it to tighten its skin, and then poured blood on the cowhide, and used a magnifying glass to observe the changes in the magic circle. The cowhide, which was the size of a wash basin, began to produce a magical reaction after the pig's blood completely covered it. At this time, Anduin tightened the blood, and the magical reaction continued. It seems that this ritual does not require blood to be flushed all the time. After helping the T-bow warthog stop bleeding, Anduin continued to observe the reaction of the magic circle until the lines on the cowhide were completely hidden, and the state of the cowhide also completely changed. Chapter 292 Ritual Magic. After removing the bloodstains, the whole piece of cowhide began to show a rough hard leather texture, which was very similar to the T-bow warthog. Anduin followed the method recorded in the magic book, holding the cowhide and activating magic power. Soon the cowhide regained its original softness. When he input magic power again, the cowhide became rough again. The effect is obvious, but when the magic circle is in effect, the magic power of some patterns in the array diagram is not smooth, which means that the efficiency is not fully exerted. The amount of blood required for the ritual is related to the size of the magic circle and the size of the materials. In addition, it does not take so much blood to draw the magic circle and operate the ritual. It is obviously a bit wasteful to directly pour a large tube of blood on it. Next time, try to use a catheter and apply it a little bit to see the effect. Anduin observed the magic circle and summarized his gains. After returning, Anduin tried to optimize the magic circle. He changed more than a dozen array diagrams at one time and prepared for the second phase of testing. A month passed quietly. Just before the end of the 5th school year, Anduin finally tested the most concise and efficient array diagram, which also consumed dozens of cowhides and a whole T-bow warthog. Anduin improved the blood transfusion process during the depiction of the magic circle and the ritual to reduce the waste of blood, and he could finally try to rely on this method to make his first blood alchemy prop. That day, Anduin came to the Forbidden Forest hut and placed a leather mask on the workbench in the hut. The mask was white in color, and some fine lines unique to animal skins could be seen on it. There were corresponding gaps in the eyes, nostrils and mouth. This was made by Anduin using the skin of the moon fool. The moon fool has a good affinity for magic and is full of vitality. Their fauces can make magical plants grow fast and strong. Then Anduin took out a crystal bottle from the secret compartment under the foot of the house. This was Tunk's blood he had drawn a week ago. In order to get Tunks to cooperate in making this prop, he paid 2 pieces of T-bow warthog ham, and also made a pair of magic boots made of magical animal skin for her. He carefully opened the mouth of the crystal bottle, and then quickly put on a metal bottle cap. The bottle cap was connected to a soft rubber tube, and the liquid inside was introduced into the engraving pen in his hand. Then Anduin began to concentrate on drawing the improved array diagram. He was going to make a transformation mask with the blood magic of Disguise Magus. The main thing was that he could not use an object with a large area, otherwise the excessive blood supply would have an adverse effect on Tunk's body. You know, she is now 11 years old, and the two sets of processes should not exceed 100 milliliters in total. Anduin drew the array diagram on the mask very carefully. This kind of concave and convex carrier is different from a flat carrier. If you are not careful, all your efforts will be wasted. After he almost used up all the liquid in the crystal bottle, the array diagram was finally completed. After the observation instrument was tested, it was confirmed that the magic array on the mask was working well, and Anduin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Tunks, come in. Anduin pushed open the wooden door of the hut and shouted. Here I come, master. I feel so unlucky. Why do I have to draw blood all the time after I met you? At this time, a tall white-haired girl jumped into the hut, muttering with dissatisfaction. It's as if I didn't compensate you enough. I heard from Charlie that after you got the pair of face shoes, you went to them to show off whenever you had time. Why didn't I see you complain at the time? Anduin rolled his eyes at her. Lulu. Tunks made a face at Anduin, then jumped to sit on the chair next to the operating table. Master, this broken mask is what you said. Can it replicate the alchemical equipment of the Disguise Magus? It's not certain whether it can be successful. This is my first time trying blood alchemy. Remember, when I draw blood, you must keep changing your appearance and concentrate on transforming. Don't fail when the time comes, and then you have to try again. Anduin warned with a stern face. Oh my god, I'll have to have my blood drawn again, I don't want it. Tunks kicked her legs like a spoiled child and shouted to Anduin in dissatisfaction. Stop talking nonsense, do as I say, be serious, I've tried it several times before and there's no problem, just don't make mistakes in your environment. Anduin frowned slightly and stared at Tunks. Stretch out your hand. Oh. Tunks pouted and stretched out her right hand honestly when she saw her master's serious look. At this time, Anduin took out a needle, held Tunks' arm, and carefully aimed. It hurts, it hurts. Tunks saw the shiny and thick needle in Anduin's hand, and she closed her eyes nervously and cried out in pain. I haven't inserted it yet, why are you panicking? Anduin sighed helplessly, then exerted force with his hands. Okay, it's in. Quickly mobilize the magic power and use Disguise Magus. Although Tunks was very nervous at this time, she also knew that this was a critical moment, and hurriedly and obediently activated the blood magic, and then saw her hair and face began to change constantly, and suddenly a young girl turned into a monster with colorful hair and a constantly distorted face. At this time, blood spread out along the hose in Anduin's hand, and then gathered on a prop shaped like a child's watercolor pen. Anduin was holding this prop at this time, carefully applying it on the mask. Every time he applied it, he applied a very thin but fairly even layer of blood on the surface of the mask. This is a small tool specially made by Anduin, which can greatly reduce the waste of blood. He had previously tested and found that in the second stage of the ritual magic, as long as the blood was covered on the surface of the formation, there was no rigid requirement for thickness. However, in order to ensure success, Anduin quickly smeared the mask back and forth 3 times, until the magic circle pattern on the skin was completely hidden. He quickly put away the instrument and stopped the bleeding for Tunks. So fast? I thought it would take a while. Tunks saw that Anduin had completed the operation in less than 2 minutes, and she herself was a little uncomfortable. Each step requires blood. How can we not hurry? It's your blood that is being drawn. Seeing that Tunks was still energetic and chattering, Anduin was relieved. So is this prop now completed? Tunks stared at the red mask covered with blood on her face. How is it? Did it work? Let's try the effect quickly. Yes. Anduin was also very curious about this blood alchemy prop. He raised his hand to pick up the mask and carefully put it on his face. Chapter 293 Disguise Mask, asking for monthly ticket recommendation. The mask felt slightly cold to the touch, but it fit very well and was soft. At the same time, Anduin could sense that the mask had a faint sense of wrapping around his face, as if the mask itself had a life. However, in Tunks' eyes, Anduin's current appearance was quite creepy. After all, the blood on the mask had not been wiped off, and the mask was very thin and almost completely grew on his face. At first glance, he looked like a monster with his skin peeled off. Then Anduin tried to inject some magic into the mask. Soon, the blood on the surface of the mask was absorbed into the epidermis, and the mask began to change color. In an instant, the mask on his face seemed to disappear. The entire mask turned into the same color as the skin in the blink of an eye, and the edges seemed to be completely integrated with his face, with no gap at all. Anduin also felt that the mask had a close connection with himself, as if this was his original face, a feeling of perfect harmony. After establishing this connection with the mask, he immediately understood the use of the mask. As soon as Anduin's mind moved, his face turned into a piece of plasticine, or like a lit candle, slowly twisting and melting. This change was quite slow at first, as if he was still familiar with its functions. However, he did not maintain this weird shape for too long. After about 10 seconds, the melted wax on his face began to shrink, then faster and faster, and finally the whole face returned to normal. Tunks, who was standing by, looked at this scene in shock. Was she so scary when she was transformed before? Until Anduin finally finished the transformation, she found another self in front of her. This was a face that looked more mature than Tunks' current face, but with better skin. It can be seen that Anduin did not completely change his face according to Tunks' face, but made some modifications, and looked more like the other person when she grew up. Wow, Master, you were a pervert. You turned into a woman, and more beautiful than me. Tunks stared at this face that was extremely similar to hers, but more mature and with better skin, and complained. No way. Anduin shook his head speechlessly. You are the only reference in front of me, so I will naturally experiment on your appearance first. Haha. Tunks pouted teasingly, but you are a little worse than me. Your hair cannot change, and your breasts are not as big as mine. Tunks patted her chest as if she had thought of something interesting. Then her face began to change. In the blink of an eye, Tunks turned into Anduin's appearance, but it seemed that she had also slightly modified some details, disguising herself as Anduin's childhood. She also made some baby fat for fun. Then Anduin with the face of an adult Tunks and Tunks with the face of a young Anduin looked at each other, and both of them immediately felt a strange sense of disharmony. Haha, now I am your master. I didn't expect you to be so cute when you were a child. Tunks happily approached the mirror in the room and rubbed her fat face in a mean way, as if she was really rubbing Anduin's face. Seeing this, Anduin went up and hit Tunks on the head, causing her to cry out in pain. Have you had enough fun? Come over here and help me test this mask. The second bottle in the cupboard is the spray of the revelation potion. Spray it on my face and see how it works. Anduin pulled Tunks' collar to the side, and then pointed at the cupboard not far away. Master, you are really not easy to tease. Tunks rubbed her head in boredom, and stuck out her tongue at Anduin mischievously, but still took out the potion honestly. Tunks sprayed the revelation potion on Anduin's face like it was free. This potion can break the effects of Polyjuice potion and transfiguration, and is widely used in the wizarding world. For example, in the deep vault of Gringotts, there is a thief-proof waterfall that constantly flows with the revelation potion. Anduin's face did not feel any strangeness after it came into contact with the revelation potion. After that, whether in Tunks' eyes or when observing in the mirror, he could not find any changes. It seems to have worked. Anduin nodded in satisfaction. The disguise mask that could ignore the revelation potion was simply a disguise artifact. It's a pity that you can't change your hair and body shape, otherwise you could disguise yourself as Professor Snape to teach other little wizards. Tunks joked boredly. It seems that you don't like Professor Snape, but he's not a bad guy. Anduin changed his face back to its original state. He felt that the mask didn't feel uncomfortable on his face, just like having an extra layer of skin, so he simply didn't take it off. Come on, you only know how to say good things to your own dean. Tunks pouted, then looked up at Anduin. By the way, Master, when can you get me a pair of monocles? Then we can wear them together, how cool it would be. Your spell level is still too poor. Let's talk about it when you learn the echoing spell. Anduin wiped the glasses in his hand with a lens cloth and slowly stuck them into his eye sockets. Tunks' talent for transfiguration has made great progress after Anduin's development, but her spell attainment is only at the level of an ordinary young wizard. If she wants to learn the Echo Charm, which has no spells yet and can only be cast without a wand, she must be at least in her 5th year. Then Anduin accompanied Tunks to play with the disguise mask in the hut for a while, and then returned to Hogwarts Castle before dark. The reason why we didn't stay in the Forbidden Forest hut for dinner today is that Hogwarts is about to enter the final exams, and Slytherin College has also entered a busy preparation period. In the last monthly exam before the end of the semester, 95% of the Slytherin subjects have achieved an E or above grade. This result has made everyone in the Snape house very excited, and the goal of all the students in the house with an E or above, which Anduin had set for them before, has become less unattainable. So for this goal, everyone in the college is working hard, and everyone is helping those young wizards whose grades are not up to standard. What Anduin and other members of the House Committee are more concerned about is the 5th year OWL exam, which is related to how many subjects 5th year students can obtain OWL certificates. According to the current monthly exam results, 5th year students have all achieved E or above grades, but the standards for obtaining OWL certificates for different courses are different. For example, in subjects such as divination, Muggle studies, and ancient runes, as long as they have E or above grades, they can be promoted and can study advanced courses after the 6th grade. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 294 Preparation for the exam, asking for monthly recommendation tickets. But for most of the main courses, the OWL exams must have at least an O. Moreover, the OWL exams are managed by the Wizarding Examinations Administration, with uniform and quite strict standards. So after the 5th grade, most wizards began to reselect courses, choosing subjects that they are good at, interested in, and want to obtain certificates for special further studies. Previously, the subjects that Slytherin students above the 6th grade passed the OWL exams were between 2 to 6, and only Velen had 6 courses to obtain the OWL certificate, while the average subjects of the rest of the wizards were only 2 to 4. But now Slytherin is different. This year's 5th year students have at least 5 courses and have the opportunity to impact the OWL certificate, so they are more confident this year and want to strive to obtain more certificates. You know, if you take more OWL certificates now, you'll have the opportunity to take more new certificates in the 7th grade. In fact, the Wizarding world is also a society that values diplomas. Whether it is the Ministry of Magic, or units such as Gringotts, Magic Newspaper, Magic Radio, various publishing houses, and major flying broom manufacturing companies, they will give priority to wizards with excellent grades and strong strength. Especially in the current environment of the British Wizarding world, from the previous war period to the recent years, except for Ravenclaw, the average Hogwarts graduates have only 2 to 4 certificates. In this way, Slytherin students who have an average of more than 5 certificates will have stronger competitiveness after graduation in the future, and can crush their predecessors and colleagues from other colleges. Anduin walked quickly through the underground stone door and returned to the Slytherin common room. It was only a little after 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was not yet time for self-study, but the dungeon stone hall was already full of people, and the surrounding walls were hung with motivational banners. The little wizards present all had a dark green headband tied on their heads, with a big windward embroidered on it with silver thread, and everyone was concentrating on reviewing. Some little wizards even grabbed bread in one hand and slowly turned the pages of the book with the other hand. It was obvious that they had saved even the time for eating and were ready to eat a few bites of bread to save time for studying. When some young wizards found the chief had returned, they were about to stand up and greet him, but they saw Anduin immediately waved his hand, which clearly meant that they should continue without greeting. Wendy and Louis, who were assigned by Anduin to prepare for the exam, immediately came up to him and followed him back to the department representative's office. Chief, the exam questions for all subjects have been published, and we have bound them into books as you wish and distributed them to students of all grades. Now everyone is taking targeted cram school lessons. Louis closed the office door and handed a document to Anduin while reporting. Well, have you finished the 5th grade exam analysis? Anduin casually flipped through the document, glanced at it casually, and then looked up at the two of them. It's already been done. Wendy nodded to Anduin, then took out a few pieces of parchment from a pile of documents in her arms and reported with a serious face. The OWL exams for Transfiguration have been centered around the conversion spell and the vanishing spell for several years, with basically no changes. Everyone has memorized the relevant written exam materials, and all 5th year students in the academy can complete the practical test. This is the course that everyone has the best grasp of. As for Defense Against the Dark Arts, the written exam tested vampires last year, and Grindylows the year before. We judge that this year's topic should be werewolves. In terms of practical exams, the curse-breaking spell and defensive spell are required items every year. This year we guess that the Bogart-repelling spell will also be added. Wendy reported neatly while comparing the materials in her hands. That's right. Louis also took over the conversation at this time. After everyone's diligent training, they can now master these contents. However, as a bonus item, more than 80% of the people are still unable to cast the Patronus charm. This is normal. This Patronus charm is difficult to begin with. Tell them not to force it and to spend their time on items that are easier to master. After Anduin gave a warning, he looked at Louis. Continue. Yes, for the written test in potions, we guess that it will test Polyjuice Potion or Vitality Tonic. These two potions have not been included in the exam for several years. As for the practical exam, we looked through the records of previous exams and found two characteristics. That is, potions that take too long to brew will not be tested, and potions that have just been learned in the 5th grade will not be tested. Based on this, and excluding the exam content of the previous 2 years, we judge that this year's practical exam questions will be one of the 3 choices of Antidote Potion, Swelling Potion, and Endurance Potion. I also asked Dean Snape this morning, and he agreed to let all 5th year students practice these 3 potions once. By the way, it's really good that the Professor of Potions is our Dean. He can provide us with some convenience occasionally. Louis couldn't help but tease a few words. Even if we are given the opportunity to practice, we must ensure that everyone can pass it, otherwise it will be a waste. When practicing potions, you and Wendy remember to watch them in person to ensure that everyone can succeed once. Anduin nodded slightly and added, "Yes, Chief, these 3 courses and the spells course are the subjects where we have the best chance of everyone passing. We know what to do." Wendy nodded seriously, but she could see a confident look in her eyes. Then the 2 of them reported to Anduin on their preparations one by one according to the subject category. They had done a lot of work in the last month before the exam. The study committee of the Snake Academy summarized all the exam questions for each subject within at least 5 years, and then summarized the patterns from them, and put out the most likely exam questions this year in advance, and then let the students review them together according to the key points they marked. In fact, with the current knowledge accumulation of the students in the Serpentine Academy, even if they review normally, they can be almost certain to pass the exam. However, they hope to pass more subjects after all, and the main purpose of predicting the questions is to save time, so that they can prepare for more subjects and do more practical exercises. Very good. After listening to the reports of the 2, Anduin nodded with satisfaction. You did a good job. Now it depends on everyone. There is less than a week left before the final exam. Time is tight, and you should not fall behind in your grades. Yes, Chief. Yes, Chief. After checking the current progress of the work, Anduin and the 2 returned to the Dungeon Stone Hall again to check the learning situation of everyone, especially the 5th graders. He got to know everyone one by one, and after finding out their review progress, he also guided them on their review rhythm, time arrangement, etc. Chapter 295. The Proud Snape, asking for monthly recommendation votes. Soon, Hogwarts welcomed the final exams of this school year. On the morning of the exam day, Anduin and all the Slytherin students gathered in the common room. Anduin stood on the familiar stone platform, looking at the neatly dressed and solemn little wizards below the stage. Today is the time to test our games. A final exam may not be able to directly measure a person's ability, but it can witness your progress and the results of everyone's efforts in the most intuitive way. At the same time, this is also that goal that Slytherin College has worked together for a year. Now is the time to test the results. From today on, you will use your grades and abilities to show everyone the glory of Slytherin. Victory comes first. Anduin made a pre-exam declaration to everyone with a sharp face, and shouted slogans with full power. Victory comes first. Glory belongs to Slytherin. All the little wizards in the stone hall shouted slogans in unison, and the sonorous and powerful voices gathered into a continuous echo, reverberating in the dungeon. All the wizards' expressions were not as excited as expected, but rather very calm. Only a hint of determination could be seen in their eyes, as if they were shouting this slogan not for their ideals, but to state an established fact. Let's go. Anduin said expressionlessly. Then, starting with the senior students, everyone lined up in an orderly queue and walked out of the college. Soon the queue merged into a dark green stream of people. Along the way, the other students who were rushing to the examination room looked at this stream of people. In fact, they were already accustomed to the queue of Slytherin College. After the other parties' habit continued for a long time, it even affected them. Now everyone would line up involuntarily when walking. However, today's Slytherin queue brought a hint of solemnity to the people around them. They could feel a chill just by looking at these people from the Serpentine College. The entire final exam was carried out in such an atmosphere. Because the exam involved many subjects, 1 exam in the morning and 2 exams in the afternoon, it would take 4 days. Anduin will also take the OWL exam this year, but he only chose 4 subjects: Transfiguration, Charms, Potions, and Care of Magical Creatures. He actually doesn't have much desire for the so-called OWL certificate, and he has passed too many subjects. When he is promoted to the 6th grade, he will have to take more classes. He wants to leave himself more free time in the next 2 years. After the actual exam began, the Slytherin students gradually realized the power of the questions predicted by the House Committee. Most of the test questions in each grade were guessed, and a large number of standard answers were in the review manuals given to them by the subject representatives. This even gave them a feeling that the Hogwarts exams seemed to be much simpler than imagined, and were not as good as the monthly exams. Especially for the 5th-year candidates, Anduin summarized almost all the OWL exam content because of his special care for them, which made them feel more confident when taking the exam. As the exam progressed, the test scores of all the students in the school were quickly corrected. After all, except for the 5th and 7th grade exams, which were handled by the Wizard Examination Administration, the professors of various subjects in the other grades could see the exams first. In the Hogwarts staff lounge, the results of the Slytherin students also caused a sensation among the professors. Oh. My God, what happened to the Slytherin students this year? Not to mention failing, I didn't even see a single student who passed. Professor Sinistra of the astronomy class stared at the report card in her hand with an unbelievable expression. Yes, this year's Slytherin house is really amazing. I was surprised to see them suddenly become so well behaved, but I didn't expect the test results to be so scary. Although Professor McGonagall is the dean of the Lion House, she has always appreciated students who were well behaved and motivated, which greatly changed her impression of Slytherin this year. Minerva, could it be that Slytherin's results in Transfiguration are also? Professor Sinistra looked at Professor McGonagall in surprise. Yes, all students scored above E, and many students scored above O. In fact, from their usual performance, I can see that they are making rapid progress, but I didn't expect the result to be so amazing. Professor McGonagall nodded and smiled at Professor Sinistra. Merlin's beard, did Professor Snape feed them all intelligence-enhancing drugs this year, causing them to change so much? Professor Sinistra knew that this was impossible, but still made a joke. Cough. Cough. Professor Flitwick next to him suddenly coughed twice, then looked at Sinistra and winked at the door of the staff lounge. Professor Sinistra turned her head and found that Professor Snape just appeared at the door at this time, looking at her calmly with his eyes downcast. Seeing that she was caught by Snape, Sinistra couldn't help but smile awkwardly, and Professor Flitwick next to her also made a tiny round. Congratulations, Severus. The exam results of the little wizards in your academy are amazing this year. In the Charms class exams, almost everyone completed the spell perfectly. I heard that the average grades of several courses are above E. You know, I haven't seen such a feat among Ravenslaw students in all these years. Do you have any secret in this regard? Listening to Flitwick's compliment, Snape remained calm and walked to his side and slowly sat down, then glanced at him indifferently. It's nothing, it's just that they have performed at a normal level. Fortunately, they didn't embarrass the academy. Then Snape glanced at Professor Sinistra. As for the secret, it's not some messy potion after all. You know, no matter what potion you drink, it's impossible for a person to cast spells calmly for several days in a row. After hearing Snape's words, the professors around him laughed awkwardly, but the expressions on their faces were as if they were constipated, and Professor Sinistra, who was choked, couldn't help rolling his eyes. Flitwick next to him also pouted his lips in disgust. Didn't I see what your academy was like in the past few years? Why did you pretend to be nice after I praised you a few times? Now you are pretending not to care. You should really take a look at yourself in the mirror. The corners of your mouth are almost upturned to the sky. Don't you feel uncomfortable holding it back? Do you really think we don't know that this is Anduin's credit? If you weren't lucky enough to have such a good student, your academy would still be eating dirt now. At this time, Snape's expression was really ferocious in front of everyone. Obviously, his eyes were full of satisfaction, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but smile, but he forced himself to keep it tight, which made his cheeks twitch constantly. I just learned how to create a QQ group, and created a book friends group 545916222. Friends who want to discuss the plot can join the group. Chapter 296 Final Dinner. The discussion of Slytherin House by the Hogwarts professors made Snape the center of attention in front of all the faculty members. However, even he himself did not expect that the snake house under Anduin's management would be so powerful. Not only did it change the atmosphere of the academy, but it also made everyone's grades show a leap forward change. After all, it was the first time that the grades of the students in Slytherin were shown to everyone. Snape did not react at the first time, so he actually lost his composure. At this time, a group of professors stood up and walked out. Today was the end of term dinner of Hogwarts. Snape could not help but speed up his pace. He could not wait to take the house cup back. When the faculty members arrived at the auditorium, they saw that most of the young wizards had also arrived at the scene. They all had smiles of excitement and joy on their faces. After all, after tonight, summer vacation would also come. In sharp contrast to these little wizards, the little snakes on the Slytherin table were sitting upright without any extra expressions. Even if they had achieved such good results in the final exam, it could not affect their discipline. After sitting down, the professors looked at the performance of the students in the Snape College and couldn't help looking at each other. For a whole school year, the Snape College has maintained such a high level of discipline. To be honest, this made the professors, including Snape, feel a chill. They even had a little fear of the current Slytherin. With Dumbledore in place, the Hogwarts final dinner officially began. During the dinner, most professors and little wizards enjoyed the banquet. Of course, they would always focus on the Slytherin table from time to time. Even if they were going to have a holiday tomorrow, these little wizards in the Snape College still maintained strict etiquette when dining. There was no laughter or joy on the entire long table. Only occasionally could the slight friction between the knife and fork and the plate be detected, which even made Dumbledore look sideways. When the dinner was halfway through, Professor McGonagall looked at Dumbledore inquiringly. After getting a nod from the headmaster, Professor McGonagall raised her spoon and knocked on the goblet on the table. The knocking sound attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. All the young wizards and professors understood that it was finally time to announce the annual school scores. At the same time, Dumbledore stood up at the right time. Another year has passed, and now it's time to award the school cup. The scores of each school are as follows. 4th place, Gryffindor has a total score of 378 points. After hearing this score, everyone in the Lion Academy actually smiled rarely, because although they were still the last this year, their scores were much higher than last year. Sure enough, they fought less and the points deducted were less. Seeing the heartless expressions of everyone in the Lion Academy, Professor McGonagall couldn't help rolling her eyes. When can they fight for her, an old witch? The 3rd place is Hufflepuff, with a total score of 406 points. The 2nd place is Ravenclaw, with a score of 437 points. And the top of the list this year is, Dumbledore glanced at the Slytherin house next to him with a kind smile. Although he could see the joy in the eyes of the wizards of the Snape house who looked over, no one lost their composure. Instead, all of them remained restrained, and even no sound could be heard from the direction. The top of the list is Slytherin, with a total score of 635 points. As Dumbledore's voice fell, the flag flying above the hall began to flutter without wind, and in an instant it changed into the green and silver Snape house flag. The wizards and faculty of the other 3 houses were shocked by the amazing score obtained by the Snape house, and then they couldn't help but applaud in congratulations. Especially Snape, although he still had a stern face, his 2 hands were almost fanning out after images. However, at this time, there was still silence at the Snape Dean's table. All the little wizards were very excited at this time, but they still sat upright. They just looked at Anduin in the middle of the long table with inquiring eyes. The meaning was very clear: can we applaud now? The abnormality of Slytherin College also attracted the attention of everyone in the school. They also followed the sight of these little wizards and stared at Anduin on the seat. At this time, Anduin slightly raised his head and stared at the flag in the sky. He just realized that Dumbledore had personally performed a large-scale transfiguration to change the school flag in the sky above the auditorium. Such a large range, such a long distance, and such a calm and silent casting without a wand, he could not do it with his current transfiguration attainments. When he came to his senses, he found that the eyes of all the teachers and students in the school were focused on him. With the inquiring eyes of the little snakes around him, Anduin also understood what happened. Pa. 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 Anduin calmly clapped his hands, and with his lead, everyone in the Serpentine College dared to applaud. Although the wizards of Slytherin joined the celebration, the young wizards of several other students and the professors of various subjects all focused their attention on Anduin, and even Dumbledore raised his eyebrows with emotion. Until now, everyone finally confirmed that the changes in Slytherin College this year all came from this young wizard, Anduin, who has always been quite low-key. His low profile made many people even forget that he was once a fighting hero. This once again aroused everyone's strong interest in Anduin, and the students of the other colleges also began to whisper and discuss Anduin. However, Anduin did not react at all to the discussions and strange looks of the crowd. He was now thinking about the plans for the summer vacation. Although Anduin caused quite a stir in the auditorium, the end-of-term dinner was still carried out in an orderly manner. After the dinner, Anduin returned to the common room and dismissed everyone in advance, and lifted the discipline requirements for the last 2 days, so that they could enjoy the final time. However, despite this, the young wizards of the Serpentine Academy have become accustomed to abiding by discipline. Even when they took the Hogwarts Express back the next day, everyone maintained strict discipline standards. Anduin, who also followed everyone back, arrived at the end and said goodbye to everyone, and then rushed to Diagon Alley without stopping. However, Anduin did not return directly to his home in Diagon Alley, and did not even enter Diagon Alley. Instead, he went around the Muggle street next to Diagon Alley and went straight to a store on the street. Chapter 297 Stealing Electricity. William, long time no see. Anduin pushed open the door of a shop, and sitting behind that counter was William, his good friend from the Muggle welfare home. "Ha, Anduin, I haven't seen you for a few years and you were taller than me." William was still the same. When he saw Anduin, he rubbed his hands and came forward. "It seems that you're doing well now." Anduin saw that William was also dressed in a suit and looked handsome, and smiled with relief. "I haven't had time to thank you for coming to help. As soon as you summoned, I naturally came to report as soon as possible. We can have what we have today, and it is also due to your letters and guidance in the past few years. No matter what project we do or what stocks we buy, we can't go wrong as long as we listen to you." William grinned and laughed. "Well, we're brothers from the same welfare home, so we naturally share the happiness." Anduin also grinned and smiled slightly. In fact, during the time he entered Hogwarts, he had been in contact with these old friends in the Muggle world, and under his advice, these childhood friends have also made a lot of money in the past 2 years. Of course, his shares are also among them. "It seems that you have completed all the tasks I asked you to do. Does this store belong to us now?" Anduin looked up and looked around the inside of the store. Except for the counter and a few shelves, it was still empty and looked like it was still in a semi-decorated state. "It belongs to you. I bought this place in your name, but is there anything special about this store? I see that the road section near here is not very busy. What do you plan to sell with it?" William suddenly received a letter from Anduin at the beginning of the year, asking him to help buy a designated store, but he had no idea what to do specifically. "Whatever consumes electricity, sell it. It doesn't matter whether it makes money or not. As long as it is open, it can help me." Anduin smiled slightly and did not give William detailed instructions. Then, under William's leadership, he checked the store inside and out, especially the circuit equipment in the store. "Well, next you help contact the construction team to install the main switch in the basement, and then issue a high-voltage electricity application certificate for me, and then purchase and install a few high-frequency resistors according to the drawings I drew. As for the store, just put some electric lights and electrical appliances and other goods. You don't need to care about the business. As long as it is open daily and uses electricity normally, it will be fine." Anduin tilted his head and instructed William one by one. "I understand." Although William didn't understand, he still nodded obediently. They, who came out of the welfare home, have been making money with Anduin's guidance. If Anduin didn't say it, they wouldn't ask too much. After explaining everything to William in detail, Anduin said goodbye to him and turned his head to return to Diagon Alley from the leaky cauldron at the corner of the street. As soon as he entered his home in Diagon Alley, Anduin saw Hog, who had returned earlier, struggling with the stairs. Anduin's sudden appearance obviously scared Hog. He was chewing on the stair column on the first floor, but he jumped forward after being frightened, and squeezed his dog head directly into the gap between the stair railings. Now his neck was stuck by the railings, and he couldn't pull it out. He could only watch Anduin walk towards him step by step with a dark face. "My lord, I didn't mean it." Hog looked at the figure getting closer and closer, and said with a flattering face. Anduin ignored him and just walked straight to the stairs. This made Hog even more panicked, and he quickly covered his head with his dog paws. "I'm sorry, my lord, I was wrong." Hog thought Anduin was angry, so he could only beg for mercy with his whole body trembling, but after a while, he didn't feel any movement, so he carefully pulled away the dog paws and looked at Anduin. Hog saw that Anduin was nowhere to be found. He ignored him and went down to the basement along the passage beside the stairs. "My lord, don't leave." "What will I do if you leave? My head is stuck. Help me, my lord." Hearing the howling of Hog above his head, Anduin curled his lips in annoyance, then closed the door leading to the basement and went straight to his alchemy laboratory. "Sooner or later, I will find a chance to deal with this guy Hog, but now is not the time to care about these trivial matters." Anduin muttered a few words, then hurried to the workbench. He first took out a large piece of parchment and spread it out. On it was a street plan. If you are familiar with the wizarding world, you can quickly recognize that this is actually a store distribution map of diagonally, or it is a plan of the block that includes diagonally. Anduin took out various drawing and measuring tools and kept measuring on the drawings. Soon, several lines were covered on the floor plan. Then Anduin kept groping on the wall of the basement, measuring something, and then took out a charcoal pencil and started drawing on a stone wall. Soon, he outlined a door-shaped pattern. The location and depth have been confirmed by the magic locator. It's not a big problem. As long as the store is renovated, we can start to arrange it. Anduin nodded with satisfaction after confirming it again and again. The reason why he used his relationship in the Muggle world to buy the store outside diagonally and tinkered with these things as soon as he got home was because he finally completed the design and preliminary testing of the magic lathe when he was at Hogwarts. The newly developed magic lathe can use the Wild Thunder charm as the core to convert electrical energy into magic power. With magic power, the lathe can automatically process, enchant, and engrave alchemical props. But after having a lathe, another problem that needs to be solved is the source of electricity. It is not impossible to install a diesel generator directly in the laboratory to generate electricity. But Anduin has tested it and found that the magic lathe has a great demand for electricity. After all, it is a reverse conversion, and there will be some losses. It is too troublesome to use a diesel generator alone. He has to add oil constantly. Moreover, putting a generator in his own laboratory is not only ugly, but also takes up space and has a peculiar smell. He does not plan to use it for a long time. But there is no circuit connection in diagonally. If he does not want to generate electricity directly at home, he has only one choice, that is to steal electricity from the Muggle world. The Muggle world has sufficient electricity. It is no big deal for Anduin to connect a little bit to use, but in order not to be discovered by the Muggles, he has to disguise himself, otherwise it will violate the confidentiality law. Chapter 298 Collar. Therefore, Anduin thought of the street shops on both sides of diagonally. You should know that diagonally is not hidden in the gamer plane, it is just hidden by the shielding spell. Diagonally is actually connected to the neighboring blocks. Then Anduin came up with an idea. He found a shop closest to his house outside diagonally, bought it, and disguised it as an electrical appliance store. Then he planned to dig a tunnel directly from the basement of his house to the Muggle shop, and then directly pull a high-power wire back to the underground laboratory. In this way, the problems of energy and lathes were solved, and there was an additional underground passage directly leading to the outside world, which would be convenient for rushing to the Muggle world if there were any problems in the future. As for security, he would install secret doors at the entrances of both sides of the passage, and add corresponding magical protection. He could even cast a Muggle repelling spell or a confusing spell directly on the Muggle shop, so that no one would accidentally discover the secret. Anyway, he didn't plan to really make money from the Muggle shop. He paid the electricity bill every month, and then he could use electricity naturally. Now the Muggle shop will be renovated, which will take at least some time. Anduin plans to use this time to make the final version of the magic lathe, and then start digging the tunnel. After planning everything, Anduin went back to the first floor along the stairs, and as soon as he went out, he saw Hog was still stuck there, and he was chewing on the railing that was stuck on him. Didn't he know to call Kaiki to help? My lord. You finally came out, hurry up and rescue me. I don't know why this damn railing is so hard. How did I squeeze in? Hog opened his mouth quickly after seeing Anduin, and then stared at him eagerly. I have reinforced the whole house. It's normal that you can't chew it. By the way, where's Kaiki? Why can't I see her? Anduin has been back for a long time, but he hasn't seen Kaiki. She went to help the Longbottoms. Augusta wrote yesterday that they need to do a big cleaning, but now there are only 2 people, one old and one young, so Kiki is asked to help. You promised before, Hog said while holding his head tightly. Anduin nodded. He did ask Kiki to help if the Longbottoms or Weaslers needed any help. He also wrote to the 2 families before. They also knew that Anduin had a house elf. My lord, don't just stand there. Get me out. Hog was almost speechless when he looked at Anduin. He didn't want to be stuck in the stairs like this. Get you out? Anduin looked at Hog with his head stuck on the side of the stairs, and suddenly thought of something, and then looked at this husky with an evil smile. My lord, what are you doing? You look so scary when you laugh. Hog panicked for no reason, and then looked at Anduin vigilantly. Nothing, I just got a new alchemical item a while ago, and I haven't tested its effect yet. It can help you get out of the gap in the stairs. As he spoke, Anduin took out a metal ring from his space ring. It looked as wide as Hog's neck. Woof. Woof. Hog was so frightened that he couldn't even speak when he heard Anduin's words. They were going to use him as a guinea pig for the experiment, and why did the thing in your hand look like a dog's collar? Hog had helped Anduin test a lot of equipment before. Although some of them were quite useful, most of them were quite unreliable, so he was quite resistant to such inexplicable items. Anduin tapped the collar twice with his fingers, and then the collar quickly grew larger. Then he slowly put the collar around Hog's neck. Woof. No, no, sir, her. Hog desperately pulled his head back, but he was already stuck, with nowhere to hide. However, after Anduin put the collar around his neck and shrunk it to fit his neck, he found that nothing strange happened. Hog kept twisting his neck, but the collar seemed to have no weight, so he could hardly feel it. This is a subsidiary product I developed based on the results of my research on transfiguration this year. Anduin looked at Hog, who was still shaking his head desperately, and smiled. Don't panic. After it is put on you, it will fit tightly to your body and activate the camouflage function. Outsiders can't see the ring. Then I can't see it either. What is this thing for, could it be? Hog seemed to think of something scary, and his dog face suddenly changed. Could it be that if I make you angry again in the future, it will suddenly tighten and clamp my head off? You have a rich imagination. Anduin looked at Hog, whose face turned terrified, and couldn't help feeling a little funny. Its function is somewhat related to what you said. Why don't you input magic power and try it? What? I have to input magic power myself. Is this a torture device that makes me commit suicide? Hog's dog face changed again, and then he let out a howl and pretended to faint. If you pretend to faint now, I won't care about you. Just blend in with the stairs here. Anduin saw Hog's disappointing look and curled his lips speechlessly. I can still hold on for a while. Hog struggled twice, as if he had exhausted all his strength, and stood up again. With your acting skills, how about I send you to the circus to do odd jobs? Anduin shook his head helplessly. Okay, just input magic power into the ring, it won't kill you. Really? Will there be any symptoms that make the dog feel very painful? Hog seemed to recall some bad memories and asked cautiously. If you keep talking, I will immediately let you know what pain is. Anduin glared at Hog with a bad face. Gah! Hog choked, as if he had made a firm decision for himself, then closed his eyes and mobilized the magic power to direct to his neck. Soon, after sensing the stimulation of magic power, the ring on Hog's neck suddenly revealed its figure again, and flickered with a faint magical aura. Then Hog felt a strange feeling. He became smaller. With the infusion of magic, Hog's body gradually shrank at a uniform speed. After a few seconds, Hog, who could reach Anduin's waist with his head raised, had become a small dog that was not even as tall as a normal person's knee. At this time, Hog was looking at the giant Anduin in front of him with a confused look on his face. Chapter 299 Products. My lord, what's going on? After Hog's body became smaller, he took advantage of the situation and got rid of the restraint of the stair railing. He slid forward and rolled his whole body to Anduin's feet. I said, this is a new alchemical prop. I call it a shrinking ring. As long as you keep inputting magic power, it can help you shrink your body. You are now the smallest form. When you master it, you can control the size at will. Anduin looked at Hog squatting there at a loss and smiled. After listening to Anduin's explanation, Hog raised his little paw in surprise, looked, smelled, and licked. Then he turned around a few times, and then ran out happily as if he had found something interesting. Hog found that after his body became smaller, everything around him seemed to have become larger, which made him feel that everything around him was so novel. And the shrinking of his body proved that many places that he could not go to before because of his limited size, such as under the table, under the sofa, etc., he can now get into them. As soon as he thought of this, Hog ran upstairs without stopping. Today, he was going to have a big adventure. Seeing Hog so excited after getting the new toys, Anduin shook his head helplessly. It seemed that some furniture in the house was going to be in trouble again. He slowly walked back to the 3rd floor. He didn't see Hog all the way, and he didn't know which corner he had gone to. Anduin didn't care much about this, but went straight back to his room and sat down at the desk. He was thinking about his next plan at this time. Anduin planned to open his underground alchemy factory this summer and produce the first batch of products. Then, at the latest before Christmas this year, he would open his alchemy company. After all, this year he had consumed a lot of savings in order to do research, and asked Karkaroov to help purchase materials from inland Europe, so he had to find a way to recover some funds. Since you want to open a store, you have to prepare in advance, and the things to consider in business are nothing more than suppliers, products, pricing, and sales channels. In terms of raw material supply, making alchemical props only requires magic alloys, wood, fur, blood, bones, etc. of magical animals. He has the synthesis drawings at Parasol Brass and Agrippa alloy in his hand. These 2 magic alloys are enough to supply product production, so he can be self-sufficient in the source of metal magic materials. As for leather and wood, he plans to pluck wool from the forbidden forest of Hogwarts. With his relationship with Hagrid, he can purchase enough raw materials from the forbidden forest. In addition, he also has contacts with the centaurs. Perhaps he can use this relationship to grab resources from the depths of the forbidden forest. Anduin nodded, then spread out a piece of parchment and wrote words such as forbidden forest, Hagrid, and centaurs on it. Next is the product and pricing. Regarding these 2 aspects, Anduin has made sufficient ideas in advance. For normalized products, he plans to supply amulet kits mainly made of Agrippa alloy, including protective amulets, communication amulets, flash amulets, and sonic boom amulets. Among them, the protection amulet is a life-saving equipment with high loss. Anduin is going to set a low price of only 10 gold galleons as a product to increase customer stickiness. The other amulets can be priced at 12 to 15 gold galleons each. Secondly, there are magic-proof handcuffs that can quickly drain the suspect's magic power, added tracking spell and tracking spell, tracking goggles that can assist in tracking, tracing, and arresting, self-check pocket watch that can check injuries, and protective gloves that can actively support the armor spell at any time, which is different from the passive activation of the armor spell by the protection amulet. The loss rate of this type of product is not as fast as the amulet, so the price should be higher, which can fluctuate between 30 to 50 gold galleons. The specific amount needs to be discussed with the Ministry of Magic to be determined. At the same time, he also prepared auxiliary combat equipment such as face shoes and tactical vests. These equipment can significantly improve the combat effectiveness and survival rate of Aurors, and the price can be 100 to 200 gold galleons each. In addition to the human-shaped target he developed this year, this alchemical tool can not only be used as training equipment within the Ministry of Magic, but also as a device for assessing new Aurors. The price of 300 gold galleons must be quite reasonable. Anduin wrote down on the parchment while thinking, and then he seemed to think of something, and then took out a tool from the space ring. This is a 1-meter-long metal rod, as thick as an arm, with one end slightly thinner and the other slightly thicker. The thick end radiates 8 thin of tentacles. It's possible to complete this equipment before the actual opening. This thing is tailor-made for the Ministry of Magic. Anduin looked at the metal rod and rubbed his chin for a while, then put away the equipment and continued the rest of the planning. He is only going to launch so many tactical equipment products at present. Other equipment either involves his core technology or contains traces of black magic and cannot be exposed. As for civilian alchemical products, he is actually ready to get involved, but he has to spread the plate first. The supply, product, and pricing were all settled, and the only thing left was the sales channel. Since his product was going to focus on tactical equipment, the target was naturally the Ministry of Magic. And in order to cooperate smoothly with the Ministry of Magic, the most important thing was to have internal connections. Thinking of this, Anduin took out 2 more pieces of parchment and wrote a letter to Arthur and Moody respectively. He was going to invite them to come over for a detailed discussion. After doing all this, Anduin stretched his back comfortably. At this time, he suddenly sensed a breath of life in the house. He knew that it was Kiki who came back. When he went down to the second floor, he found that the living room was already a mess. All the tables, chairs, and even the storage cabinets were pushed up in a mess. All these furniture were artificially arched into a pile, like a small mountain made of wood, and Kiki was standing aside holding a brown paper bag of food, staring at all this in amazement. "Sir." Kiki saw Anduin appear at the stairs and looked at him nervously. "I didn't do this, sir. I just came back." "I know." Anduin nodded to Kiki, then closed his eyes and sensed for a while, then stared at the pile of furniture with a bad face and yelled, "Hog." After hearing Anduin's voice, the pile of furniture shook, and then a crackling sound came from it, and then a dusty dog head struggled out from the gap between the furniture. "Sir, look, I built a fortress for you. It's a good craftsmanship." The little dog head deliberately made a cute baby voice and looked at Anduin eagerly. Chapter 300 Magic Lathe. "Should I say thank you then? What's going on? I've never seen you act so crazy before." Anduin glared at Hog with a sullen look on his face. "I just wanted to test the effect of this alchemical equipment for you, but when I was transforming, I forgot that there was furniture on my head. But don't worry, this shrinking ring is of good quality and it's not damaged." Hog grinned awkwardly. If I believed you, my head must have been hit by a typical warthog." Anduin narrowed his eyes, walked forward, grabbed the dog's neck, and pulled Hog out. After pulling Hog out, Anduin muttered a few spells, and then a burst of magic light appeared on the shrinking ring. "I've imprisoned the effect of the collar. As a punishment, you can't grow bigger for a week. Stay away." After saying this, Anduin threw Hog aside, and then used a spell to restore the mess in front of him. Hog knew that he had caused trouble, and quickly squatted in the corner. Then he looked at Kiki, who was taller than him, and said, "Hi, Kiki, welcome home. What shall we have for dinner? Who are you?" "Mr. Hog. Why did you suddenly become so small?" Kiki looked at everything that had just happened in a daze, and she hadn't reacted yet. It's hard to explain. Adults are no longer the adults they used to be. Now they don't feel sorry for such a cute puppy. I remember when he was in school, he doted on that Capcan. Even if it knocked over the adult soup pot, it was okay. My current status is not as good as Ryan of Hogwarts family." Hog lowered his head and sighed sadly. "So you want to make trouble everywhere just because you were cute now? Then don't you think adults are fools?" Kiki looked at the dejected Hog and rolled her eyes speechlessly. After cleaning up all this, Anduin, Kiki and Hog enjoyed a full meal. In the following week, Hog did not cause any trouble because of his size. And because he became a cute little puppy after shrinking, other shops in Diagon Alley actually lifted the ban on him. Now he is not only allowed to enter and exit their shops at will, but also often receives gifts from shop owners or customers. Of course, they may not recognize that the little puppy is the same as the big wolf dog before. During this week, William's efficiency was also quite fast. He had already obtained all the relevant licenses. At the same time, the basement of the Muggle shop was also assembled. Not only was a large transformer box installed directly in the basement, but it was also equipped with several high-frequency resistors. Soon, this basement became a current transfer station that could provide high power and high voltage. At this time, the Muggle shop could open as long as it placed enough electrical appliances on the first floor. Anduin also started digging the tunnel. Since he was going to build this tunnel into a semi-permanent fortification, he handled it very carefully. Before digging, he also studied whether there were public facilities such as subways and sewers along the way, and planned a fairly safe route. He also purchased a large number of stone bricks and stone support columns from the Muggle world. Not only did he use support columns every 2 meters to stabilize it, but he also used magic to reinforce the surrounding area before laying stone bricks and stone walls to make the entire tunnel quite solid. It took several days for Anduin to finally open the entire tunnel and build an underground passage completely reinforced by stone bricks. Later, when pulling electricity from the Muggle business, he specially hid the cables under the floor tiles and made them into hidden wires. Then he used spells and physics to make a mechanical wall for the entrances on both sides, sealing the entrance of the passage tightly. Unless he used his specific keys and spells, it could not be opened at all. When all this was done, the energy problem of the magic lathe was finally solved. Then Anduin began to test the practicality of the lathe in a hurry. He installed the sample machine he had made at Hogwarts before, and then connected the high-voltage cable he had connected. The whole lathe looks similar to the industrial-grade drilling and milling machine in the Muggle world, but it is smaller than the normal drilling and milling machine that is more than 10 meters long. After all, it is mainly used to process some small objects, and does not need such a large specification. The lathe consists of a basic bed, a magic core, a control console, a feed port, a pressing chamber, a drill bit, a cutting knife, and a micro-carving knife specially used for engraving runes. There is also a water washing and grinding machine next to it. The whole lathe is completely driven by magic. As long as the product specifications are set in advance and the materials are placed in the feed port, the lathe will automatically complete a series of tasks such as pressing, coating, shaping, rune engraving, and grinding, and can directly produce a complete alchemical prop. After Anduin connected the cable, he took out his magic wand and pointed it at the machine slightly. Then the whole lathe lit up with a large area of magic patterns, and then the core loaded with the wild thunder magic code flashed a series of electric currents. Some electric current sparks even popped out of the surface and then burst to the side. At the same time, the lathe sounded a discordant roar. Seeing this, Anduin thought that the magic core had failed to operate, but he didn't worry for too long. The vibration and noise of the lathe began to stabilize slowly, and the core no longer flashed sparks. The dazzling magic aura gradually dimmed and returned to a soft light. At this time, the green light on the console also lit up, indicating that the equipment was running. It seemed to be successful. Anduin waved his fist slightly in a slightly out of control. You know, although this lathe is a sample machine, it is also very expensive. Even if it needs to be upgraded in the future, it will basically be improved on the basis of the prototype. If it is scrapped like this, he will be heartbroken for a long time. The core power is running normally and the pressure is stable. Then let's actually make it and see the effect. Anduin calmed down, then took out a portion of the brass raw material, threw it into the feed port, and then set the production of the protective amulet on the console, and then started the lathe. As Anduin moved, the whole lathe started with a uniform buzzing sound. The magic metal raw material was poured into the pressing chamber through the feed port, and then was pressed by a series of metal rollers to form a metal copper plate of uniform thickness. Then magic runes flashed on the lathe, and an invisible force lifted the metal plate and guided it into the bed. Then a mechanical arm with a drill bit started, slowly approached the metal plate, and then began to rotate at high speed, emitting a burst of dazzling sparks. The metal plate, which was rotating at high speed, floated in the air without moving because it was fixed by the magic spell. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.